always have a beard.
But still.
Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you had these? Well, earrings. Probably need to move up on that mic a little bit. And
Let's do it. Let's do it.
No,
Let's
we're in
do
it.
15. I want to get my ear pierced. Just the one. And coming from a very conservative house, like that was just like, nah, don't do that. But for whatever reason, I talked my dad into let me get it. I think it was 15 or 16. And he wanted to get his done too at the same time as a bonding. I don't know. What a wild world we live in where parents think that they can be hip and happening too. But yeah, so he wanted to get his done too.
My dad would have never done that.
I was like, sure, let's do it. Whatever. You're approving to get mine done. Yeah. He only kept his in for like maybe even a week and took it out. So I had the one probably up until my senior year. Yeah, probably my senior year.
Did you have like a loop in there? What'd you do?
I have variations, right? So it wasn't until I got into my mid-20s where I found these specific ones that I still wear.
What do you call those? That style?
Gauges. Yeah. Okay. I call them gauges.
Are they like widened out or like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not the. So back to your point, when I was younger, I used to wear the fake ones that would make it look like you had gauges. Sometimes I had hoops. I actually got the top part on one of these sides done. So I had two on both sides at one time. And then I also had my snake bites in high school.
Snake bites.
That's what they call those, snake
bites. So you were talking to a rather sheltered, conservatively raised kid who's like never really looked into earrings before, as far as like what each one means or this or that.
And no, that's cool.
I'm curious.
That's cool. No tattoos?
Nope.
Do you ever plan on getting one, or are you just like anti-tattoo?
I mean, well, so you go to the Old Testament. It's like, does not to mark the body for the dead, things like that. Whether that actually applies to tattoos for your own purposes or not can be interpreted. Like, I know people who are hardcore anti-tattoo, and I know people. Well, Randall was in here the other day.
Right.
This podcast might come out before that one, but Randall was in here, and he's got half sleeves.
Yeah.
So like I don't think God's gonna judge at the end for those. But do you have any tattoos?
Yeah.
That's right. You have the.
I've got sparrows here. I've got 3 stars. All 4 now. I've got 3 younger brothers and a younger stepbrother, and we all had the 3 stars to represent each other. Us, the other 3 brothers, right? And then the younger stepbrother one day decided he wanted to get his stars, his 3 stars. But then it took away the meaning because we were getting them for our 3 brothers, but then now we're adding another brother. So we're like, okay, we
all have to go get one.
Do we get another star? So a goof was going to be, we're going to get just like a little asterisk and put a little asterisk to represent him or something. We never did.
An asterisk is a star.
we never did. It was really interesting because we took a guy's trip earlier this year to Hot Springs, Arkansas. First time we've really taken a brother's trip like that. We're all to a point now where we have families, we have finances in order to a degree. And we went to Hot Springs, and you should have seen those ladies looking at us, all of us, and they're all ex-military except for Colson. He's the one right under me. He's not ex-military, but the other 3 are Navy and Air Force. So they're somewhat fit. And we're all walking around, and clearly I look like the boss with the beard, and we all got the same tattoo. And we had a couple people come up to us. Are you guys in a gang? Are you in some sort of club or something?
Biker club?
Yeah. And we're like, no, we're just all brothers. We almost got kicked out because of course they saw all 4 of us, all 5 of us rather, just kind of hopping from hot springs to hot springs, and they didn't want us bringing drinks or food to the hot springs, things like that. So
Mm.
it's interesting. But yeah, so got my gauges. Probably started gauging them out of high school, and then I took the other one out. I didn't like the lip rings too much. I think they wore. I had
The
loops.
snake bites.
Yeah, the snake bites. So, but they
And that's
looped.
because they're like on each side of your like lower lip.
I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that comfortable?
Huh?
Is that
Is it
comfortable?
to a degree? I mean, it's something I found myself like fidgeting with them. Just kind
Mm.
of just messing with it, stuff like that.
Helps with your ADD. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if you have ADD or not.
No, no,
I got
no.
a touch of it, but
I did. I did. ADHD and ADD
I think
was
everyone does. It seems like almost every person we interact with has a touch of it.
well. My theory is that it's in the food.
Mm.
It's 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 from a molecular genetic point. They're messing with the food, and it's messing with everybody. Because I mean, you didn't hear about
Mm.
that before that our generation, right?
Or maybe it's like the suppression of men. Go red pill. No,
Maybe.
there is something to like the school system is more oriented towards better for females than it is for males, as a learning environment.
Okay.
I believe.
So they're just more easily to diagnose because men can't be
I
in a
do think
classroom setting.
women are. There's a study saying that women are underdiagnosed with ADHD, or maybe it's anxiety, or maybe it's the other way around. Women, no, it's women are more diagnosed than men are with anxiety because men display the symptoms differently. They hide them more
Yeah.
than women do. Um. Anyway, rabbit trailing a little bit here.
No, there's no such
Um.
thing.
Yeah. Why don't you introduce yourself, Ben?
Ben Schexnider, um, live in Nacogdoches, Texas, oldest city in Texas,
I've got a fist fight with San Augustine over that, but
oldest incorporated city.
I don't know.
I don't know.
San Augustine makes the claim too,
Do they?
but they do.
I guess anybody
At
can.
least that's what we were told 20 years ago, back
When
when I was growing up here.
when
So
somebody says that, it always reminds me of that movie Elf, where
it's a great movie.
where he.
One of the best Christmas movies.
I agree. I agree. Watch it every year. Where he goes to the cup of coffee. Congratulations!
did
You did it! Best cup of coffee. And he brings one to her. He's like, "Oh, it tastes like a crappy cup of coffee."
No, the naivete in that movie is
Oh.
awesome. It's Will Ferrell's best.
He plays it so well.
That and Stranger Than Fiction. If you've seen that, that's a pretty good movie.
Is that the one where he's an author or he's
No,
reading
he's
a
a
book?
character.
He's
No,
the
no,
character.
he's a character, and he
The
starts hearing
author
a
is
voice narrating
yeah.
his life.
I think I saw it once and didn't touch it again, but I remember liking it. Yeah. Oh, Will Ferrell.
The greatest Christmas movie of all time is Rare Exports.
What's that
I've seen
one?
that. It's a Finnish
No.
movie where
I thought you were gonna say Die Hard.
no, it's a Finnish movie where this a mining company is mining in Finland, and they unleash Santa Claus, who's been buried under like this giant pyramid
Okay.
of coal or something
Okay.
for 1,000 years, and he's like this demon who wants to collect the children.
Of course.
And so all there's these naked bearded white men
Now, once
start
again,
showing
the
up.
best? The best?
It's awesome.
Okay.
These naked bearded white men start showing up in town wanting to kidnap children, and they look like Santa Claus, but actually there's a bunch of them, and their master is the actual Santa Claus, who's like this Krampus looking character. And then so it's about this kid and his dad and
Horror,
their
thriller?
friend. It's a horror comedy.
Okay. Oh, it's comedy.
Yeah, it
Okay.
definitely leans. It doesn't like lean into it intentionally,
Right.
but it's definitely like this movie.
Yeah.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay.
And so yeah, they have to defeat this evil Santa, the evil Santa and his minions. It's a short movie. It's only like an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20.
Probably doesn't take too long to get to where it's going.
It's a good movie.
Okay.
It's
Is it in English?
I don't think so. I don't know. There might be a dub version. It's been a while since I watched it. It's been probably 10 years since I watched it.
Oh wow. Okay.
But
What's the name of it?
Rare Exports.
Rare Exports. Okay, I'll have to look that up.
It's
You big
dude,
movie buff?
you would love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a cinephile.
Yeah.
Per se. Like
I mean I've never heard of that one. That one's off the beaten path.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not like I haven't gone back and watched all the classics. Like, as a writer, I probably should, but at the same time, like I'm more into story. Like I started writing novels, So like it's where like story's paramount more than anything,
Right.
rather than
Citizen
say
Kane?
cinnamon hit. I started it, didn't get through it.
You gotta
Blasphemy.
sit through it. You gotta sit through it. The
I know the
ending.
ending. I know the ending.
Okay, well, if you I guess if you know the ending, it doesn't matter how you get
I don't know
there,
if the mic picked that up or not, but yeah.
probably. Um, Beautiful Life,
Oh yeah, yeah,
another great Christmas
yeah,
movie. Um, Probably a must. Well, I remember growing up, that was a
yeah.
must.
It's on. Well, it's how can you not see that when you
Yeah.
have a TV in your
And then
house?
when it came out in color, oh,
Mm.
oh,
Well, that might be sacrilege.
oh, game changer.
Turning black and white to color
Game changer.
because it just
What do you think about these AI generated have you seen these panorama 70s style trailers for movies that have come out? Have you seen that? So they'll take
like the Lord of the Rings in 1950s or
w-
Harry Potter in the 1950s.
well, yeah, but this one is specifically the 70s, but yeah,
Yeah.
same concept. But then they write probably AI writes a trailer dialogue for it.
Maybe those look like they're a little tailored by
You
people.
think
They're
so?
certainly tailored. Like if AI wrote it,
Oh yeah, they're
uh,
going in there tweaking
yeah,
stuff.
the images are all AI based though.
Yes, the images
Yeah.
are, but they're like tied to potentially real actors from that
Well, I
era.
think the first guy who started it, the first place I saw it, they were doing Wes Anderson movies. So it's like, what if Wes Anderson made Star Wars?
Mhm.
What if Wes
Mhm.
Anderson made
Yes,
Lord of the
yes.
Rings? So they're very
Exactly.
like quirky, and then they have all his actors. So there's William Dafoe,
But
Adrian
they're
Brody,
little short, like 5-minute trailers. They're nothing
like two
huge.
minutes.
Yeah. Now, yeah, even
Yeah,
that. But what do you think about that progression of like eventually
progression of AI.
well, no, that progression of eventually getting to 5, 10 years down the road? And how old will we be?
That'll be in the
Obviously
early 40s.
early 40s, late 40s.
In
And
5
like
years, I better not be in my late 40s in
you get what
five
I'm
years.
saying though. But as we get older, wanting to reminisce about old movies, but then being able to like tweak them to that specific style because the technology will be there for sure.
It's an interesting idea. Um, I mean, AI is a big can of worms, and we don't exactly know what's going to happen with it.
Right.
And there's a lot of naysayers, and then there's a lot of people who are pro, who think it's going to replace everything. I mean, like
I think it's a tool.
I've been using AI to cut shorts, Opus AI, and they have an option in there to generate AI B-roll via
Mm,
OpenAI. So I've been
interesting.
toying with that and like dropping, and they're pretty good. You can always spot them because the contrast levels, like there's always they land in a middle zone, and there's always brights and darks, and there's a certain telltale sign
Uncanny
to
Valley.
it's not Uncanny Valley. No,
No?
no. Corridor Crew was explaining this the other day. The reason you can spot them is because all AI photos are generated from a noise background,
Okay.
and where they stop basically 1 and 0, and 1 is dark and 0 is light. And so as they create the image out of that noise pattern, they have to graduate like to where there's basically an even amount of dark and light in the photo. That's why they're so contrasty. Every time you see an AI
Mm.
photo, there's heavy contrast
I mean, it looks
between the
good.
dark. Yeah, they
Yeah.
look really vibrant,
Really
but
vibrant.
you never see them not look vibrant. You never see them where they're mostly dark and a little bit of light, or mostly light and a little bit of dark. They're never washed out, they're never faded, and that's why they're easy to spot.
Yeah.
Now, the AI might compensate for that at a certain point in the future. What I'm interested in is at the point when it gets the ability to accurately create long clips of people interacting without hands morphing and people
Right.
flipping into another thing.
Which
Um,
freaking social media, this new generation with the you talking about the AI morphing into different stuff, bro. Gen Alpha, Gen Zers, their form of entertainment is wild. Like the weirdest, wackiest AI morphing stuff, and I'm like,
I don't know who's toying.
how do
Gen
you?
Alpha is not toying with that. It'd be the Gen
It,
Z,
it would be Gen Zers,
Gen Z,
but I'm
and
saying Gen
millennials.
Alphas are like can probably consuming most of it,
Maybe,
if
yeah,
if their parents even
yeah, 14-year-olds and
let them.
down.
Yeah,
But what's that doing to their brains? Well, okay,
It's
think
the
about like
weirdest
okay, if
thing.
you show someone like someone who's never seen a movie before, which good
Hmm.
luck finding them in society. there's a hard the idea of editing, cutting from one image to another, which is not something that happens in our brains. Like
Right.
our brains are our vision is a continuous cycle. We never cut. Like I'm not cutting over to your vision.
Right.
Um, so when you show them a movie for the first time, it's like it's jarring. How did you shift viewpoints?
Mm,
And that's like when we're going to this AI realm and all the other weird, wacky stuff that's happening. Like our brains, our software, firmware, or whatever is adapting to that
yeah.
way of thinking. But it's also
Mm,
dreamlike. Now, like I was saying with AI, at the point where they can create cohesive images that stay together, don't morph around, they'll be able to start making movies based on that dialogue. Now, is it going to be original? AI tends to be just a regurgitation of
what's already
everything
out
it's
there.
consumed.
Yeah.
And then you'd also have the problem where AI eats itself, where it starts consuming other AI,
But you could still create base models, new base models, and feed it that
presumably.
to
But you
a
also run into the
extent.
issue of copyright. So like Adobe, they have their own stock catalog that they're
Yeah.
training their AI on, so they don't run into a copyright issue.
Right.
Again, that's just for pictures. One thing AI is really good at is like smoke and lighting and fire, things that CGI is not good at. It takes a lot of work to make look good. So I could see areas where like here's the world where I go. If you're going to keep the creative involved, you still have a writer, you still have performers, you still have a director, but there's no reason that you can't be in a poorly lit room with no background and then just have AI, take that footage, ingest it, and have the AI just
Do the
create all the
backdrops.
background, all the lighting, everything around your characters so you still have the performance, and you eliminate 95% of the crew that's needed. I'm not saying that's a
I
great thing.
bet
Like
you.
I like the process of filmmaking. I like the crew. I like all that stuff around, but it's hard to justify the bottom line when you can
Yeah.
just punch a button and then 2 minutes later you have what would take CGI artists hours and hours and hours to
Hours.
create.
Bet you Disney's kicking themselves for building that dome thing, that
In
stage.
Vegas?
No, not that. No,
Oh,
that's
the
the
sphere?
not that's the sphere. Uh,
Uh
you know what I'm talking about?
the
How they
volume.
shot
The
the
volume.
volume?
They've
Yes,
been well, they've been
for
putting
Mandalorian.
like that. I mean, they got their money out of that thing.
Oh yeah, but
But
I'm saying like,
they're popping up everywhere. Those volume sets are popping up
oh,
everywhere because they're just an LED wall. So they're like what's in the back at our church, but probably smaller
super small.
pixels.
Yeah,
And then
curved.
the camera will orient. Like if you've seen the background photos where like the camera moves and everything shifts weird on the
Hmm.
screen, that's the screen shifting to adjust to the camera's
Right.
perspective, so that you have proper parallax.
Which I think, as a for a practical sense, is great for the actors.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
it's
I
great for
think
lighting too.
you're gonna get way better performances.
Than a green
Um,
screen.
one hundred
Yeah, because
percent,
you can have the monster in the background.
100%.
And then lighting is a big thing too.
Yeah,
Now, where it
true.
does fall short is it doesn't do well at bright lighting. So, like high noon looks terrible, doesn't look
Mm.
right on a volume because it can't produce that level of brightness.
You still got to bring in some extra lights.
Even then, indoor
Yeah,
lights can't do it. Like
yeah,
you can still tell. Like when actors are on a green screen and they're being lit artificially and they're supposed to be in bright sunlight, doesn't look right. It's
yeah. You
just
can
not
still
hot
tell.
enough.
Gotta
Um,
have that sun,
gotta have that
baby.
sun.
Gotta
Um,
have that sun.
so, and you want to tuck into that? Which one you
I don't
want?
know. I don't know. Let's try this Basil Hayden.
Okay.
Yeah,
Since Randall
don't crack.
swears,
Yeah, don't crack open the new
Randall
one.
swears by it. Oh, all right. So did you finish introducing yourself? Were you happy with that?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, there's not much to say outside of, I'm married. I have two daughters. We homeschool them. And moving to Nacogdoches 3 years ago, man, who knew? Who knew? Like just tapping into this church, like and connecting with other families that also are kind of very
Mm,
like minded, right? This next generation, I'm excited for my generation of Christians. It's like almost like we're just kind of like, for a lot of people it was that they grew up in the church. It was their father's religion, right? And it wasn't until I really got away from my family, started my own little collective, and step back to say, what do I believe in? What do I really believe in? And then pouring into my kids, but just to find a community that's also on that same path of like, hey, just because a preacher said it 20 years ago and read this verse wrong
Hmm.
or interpreted it wrong, why don't you read it again and ask the Holy Spirit and see
Yeah,
if that,
don't hold angst against the Bible because of
yeah,
someone's misinterpretation.
yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers, sir. I like that. Ooh, Elseth Reserve.
Mm.
Nice. Mm.
Yeah, that
I
was
see
a.
you got some coordinates down
Well,
here.
that's nice.
Is this a treasure map?
No, I believe one of them was.
Is
I should know this because my wife got me these for a
Let's type it in and
birthday
see where it
present.
goes.
The one would be where we lived up in Minnesota, and then the other one would be the coordinates of where we filmed our first movie.
Oh, so she just gave you two?
No, there were two others, but they got broken.
Oh.
So they're different coordinates.
What?
There were four glasses, two pairs that each had the same coordinates on them.
When did you
So fortunately, they
shoot your
broke
first
separately.
movie?
2021.
2021.
Yeah.
Your videographer?
No, I would be the the
What are you?
writer, director,
Oh,
cinematographer,
all of it.
editor, script supervisor,
Was
DIT, first AD. There were 5 people on this movie set.
okay.
So I was doing everything.
Tell me about the movie. I've never seen it.
Well, hasn't been. I'll send you a copy.
Oh, okay.
Um, it's
Oh,
a
so it's like underground.
It's underground. It's one of those unreleased movies that's on the shelf right now.
Okay.
It's about a woman who's under house arrest for reasons we learn about. And she's a PI of sorts who is looking for a girl who's gone missing. And so she's doing it all from her phone. So we're just one person we're following, talking to a bunch of people on calls.
How long is that?
Uh, the first cut was 2 hours and 42 minutes. So we didn't have a shortage of footage. The current cut's an hour and 40 something.
Still
Um,
good.
so no, there's plenty of
Yeah.
footage to add back, but like it was definitely on the long
Well,
side of the
yeah,
first cut.
you gotta.
Normally, when people go out and shoot their first movie, they're like, we have 60 minutes and we need to stretch this to 90 minutes. We don't have that problem.
Okay.
Shot 40 hours of footage total. We shot for 43 days. So yeah, I did all those things, basically anything that we couldn't have someone else do. My wife set decked, produced, catered. And then my father-in-law did sound for me, and then we had our actress, and she did her own makeup, and then we brought in another guy to read off of her, and he slated and did a few other things and helped a little bit with lighting. But primarily, his job was to work with the actress to
Is it a
get her through her
mystery?
lines. Yeah, it would be like a thriller mystery.
Does she find her man?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I gave away the ending.
Oh, I
Oh
mean,
well.
I mean,
Well, what
if
happens
if
is
you didn't, there had
what
to be some
so
other
a
payoff.
girl goes missing. The parents of the girl contact our main character to search for her. Pretty shortly, she finds the guy who she thinks did it, but she doesn't have proof. So she's on the phone with she's talking to him, trying to figure out, basically get him to confess whatever, find out any clues she can, and he's looking for her at the same time. So it's kind of like a cat and mouse thing where she's trying not to give him any information
Mm.
as to where she is, or and then
You make any Alfred Hitchcock appearances?
well,
Any shadows in the background?
there is a shadow in the background. It's not me.
Oh,
No, I had to run the camera. um, it's my father-in-law in the background, and it's funny because like he did a kind of a very stilted move, and I'm gonna have to go back and like maybe AI can help me augment the shadow now. I did toy
interesting.
with the idea of so the holdup is most of the performances are not done in the movie on the vocal performances, the phone calls.
Okay.
I did do a spec version to send out to some film festivals.
Yeah.
Didn't get accepted in any of them, unfortunately.
Oh, man.
But
Where do you start with a project like that? Pen and paper,
writing, yeah,
writing it.
yeah.
I mean, do you have a general premise at that point?
So the way I write, I mean, every writer is different. There's
No,
many
I'm
ways to
asking
write as
what
there are
your process
writers.
is.
My process is
Not to
kind of
give away
is
any
half
secrets.
outlining, half pantsing. So
Okay.
outlining is where you sit down and you build a structure
Yeah.
of everything. Pantsing is where you just start writing.
Okay.
So the problem with pantsers is they tend to not know where they're going.
I'm a pantser.
So they write so Stephen King is total pantser. Like
Okay.
he just writes with the wind and writes 6, 7 pages a day. His book on writing is a really good book about writing. I'll swing back. There's an interesting note about that.
All right.
Um, but uh, if you're writing into the wind and you don't know where you're going, you can write a story that's completely discombobulated and has no direction.
Right.
So like before I start writing a story, I know where it begins, I know some bits that happen in the middle, and I know where it's going to end. And then if I start outlining beyond that point, I get bored with it. So I will write until I hit an obstacle, and then I'll start outlining a little bit more, and then I'll hop back and forth between the two, between writing prose and writing outlines.
I've always been fascinated with movies in general with great writing and just,
Mhm.
I mean, Tarantino stuff.
Sure. Now
Um,
he's highly style over
oh yeah,
substance, but his style overcomes. One of my favorite movies is Inglorious Bastards.
yeah.
Um, it's just a really good movie.
The first, I guess it'd be broken up into like 3 or 4 sections. With them hiding in the floorboards. Was that the first section?
That was the first section, yeah.
Man,
Oh no,
man,
he is a master of tension,
yeah.
but it anyway, it leans more toward the style. Like
But then even like
this is a really nice whiskey.
Murder on the Nile, Orient Express, like
Kenneth Branagh.
is that who wrote
The
those?
two recent, no, he directed the two recent runs. Those are
Well,
Agatha
I mean
Christie.
they're all based on Agatha Christie's.
Yeah,
But I'm saying like that just a good mystery that truly ties in. I mean, Murder on the Orient Express, where everybody like at the end, spoilers,
yeah,
everyone at the end like knew each other and was related
yeah.
and like,
They
and you
all
don't
did
see
it.
it coming. You don't
Mhm.
see it coming. It's like that I cherish those
So how
types
about
of.
where are you on M. Night Shyamalan then? M. Night Shyamalan.
So Signs is one of my wife's favorite
Movie
movies.
freaked me out when I was a kid.
I didn't
Saw
really.
that the first movie I thought saw in theaters when I was 14 years old.
Well, I was disappointed with it because there wasn't enough aliens.
Mm,
Um, but I
it's not
I
his
get
thing.
it. Now, better than Signs would be the
Well,
one.
his first two. So The Sixth Sense and then Unbreakable.
Sixth Sense is all right. Didn't hate Unbreakable. What's the one where they it's a group of like teachers that breaks off from society,
That's The Village.
the village. That one was weird, man.
So
Um,
the signs in The Village are the two where people started panning him,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
The
for sure.
Happening happened,
Oh, The
and then
Happening
The
with
Happening,
Mark Wahlberg.
yeah, The Happening is probably my favorite of his
Really?
because it's
Ah,
the best comedy he ever did.
the
If
best
you watch that
comedy.
movie as a comedy, it is hilarious.
Why? Because they're just out there like
It's wild.
ah.
It's a wild movie. I mean, it's hard not to laugh when a guy lays down in front of a lawnmower. Sorry.
No,
Just
that's
the way it was filmed and everything, it was funny. And then the
you gotta.
performances are so wild.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You got a little bit of a twisted
A little bit.
a little bit of twisted sense of humor, I guess.
I watched Braveheart when I was 8. Probably went downhill from there. Jurassic Park when I was 6, 5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, no, I don't think those did it.
What do you think did it?
I don't know. I don't know yet.
Or
We'll
should we
find.
find out?
We will find out by the end of this podcast series. We
Mm,
will find out.
mm.
Um, but yeah,
How big are your gauges going to be by the time we retire from this?
I've stopped expanding them.
Mm. Why?
It was a journey to get to this point. Um, Partly because if I go any bigger, I think it's obviously going to be like way more permanent.
Mm.
If I took them out now and probably waited 5 years, you probably wouldn't even know,
Just
kind
looked
of
like he
deal.
had some big earlobes.
Yeah, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Um, I don't anticipate taking them out. Like I said, I haven't changed these particular ones in so long because for whatever reason, I think I got these at the Mall of America in Minnesota.
Mm,
Yeah.
I've been there.
And
Biggest mall in America.
bro, that's a crazy mall.
Mhm.
One of my favorite malls to just go walk around in. It's got so much to do, so much to see, and I love a great mall with like a good a board game store because they have such a high inventory that you can actually like just pull down the box and like look at it.
Mm.
It's hard to do that online and gauge a good new board game online. We're big board gamers
'Kay.
at our house. Um, so yeah, Mall of America was definitely
Do you
was
think Mall
crazy.
of America is dying with the other malls? Or it's enough of a terrorist spot to I don't know. We don't have someone back there to look up the numbers.
Well, did you hear about you know what happened in Florida earlier this year at a mall?
Maybe, maybe not.
The whole like there was like I don't know, like 250 cops showed up and like shut down this whole mall. People were running, screaming.
I
Um,
believe I heard
but they
something.
don't have a single there's not a single
Reason why?
reason why, no cell phone footage, nothing of what
No cell
happened.
phone footage.
Yes.
So, like, all the people who are running with phones,
Yes.
because the first thing people do
Yes.
nowadays is turn their phones on
Yes.
and start
Yes.
recording.
They pulled it, deleted everything
Mm.
systematically. Will not answer questions as to what actually happened.
Aliens?
They were supposedly like 7 foot, 8 foot creatures.
Mm. So science.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Signs.
watched
Signs of the
that
times.
that channel you sent me the other day. Was it Mr. Mythos?
Mr. Mythos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
What do you
fun
think about
stuff.
that?
Well, like we were talking about the other day, where like I'm not big into conspiracy theories,
Well, I don't
and
think that's a
no,
conspiracy
no, no.
though.
But I've
That's
been
facts.
something I've been thinking about. Well, facts. You know,
I mean, the dude did his homework
sure.
and ultimately the guy on his deathbed confessed.
No, no, that stuff was definitely based on a lot of facts. I started going a rabbit trail with other of his videos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the first video was about the chronovision,
Chronovision.
where the Catholics,
The
the
Vatican.
Vatican developed a piece of technology that could view
Uh-huh.
the past.
Uh-huh.
They went and followed Christ around and other characters. And the guy ultimately, like, he reported this to news. It was in the Italian news a bunch. Some pictures came out that were proved falsified of like images of Christ from the TV. And then there's a report that on his deathbed, he confessed that it was something he was trying to do, achieve this priest. Was it a priest or a cardinal? I think it was a cardinal.
It may have been a cardinal.
Uh, he confessed that like he was the only person who had been really working on this thing. It was something that he hoped to achieve, and he kind of like put the rumors out there and stuff.
Yeah.
And then the other ideas, well, they were just the Vatican put that out to discredit him on his deathbed.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but I was thinking about like why I don't, I'm not a big fan of digging into conspiracy theories too much. Is probably it's because I grew up with them. I was raised in a household that was always telling me the world was going to end. And so they maybe they're traumatizing for me. I don't know. So it's one of
Interesting.
those things where I've seen too many people go down a rabbit hole and have it neuter their lives and make them not useful to
Y2K.
society.
Y2K pretty
Sure.
traumatic.
I don't know if it was traumatic, but yeah, the world's gonna end.
Yeah,
And it's not just Y2K. It's like Harold Camping in 2011, which I was grown enough that the world's gonna end. The economy is gonna collapse, or the world's gonna end.
yeah.
And the world's gonna go on. It's gonna keep going.
Was it ultimately based on a pre-tribulation thought
No, we're
process?
we're not. Well, yeah, pre-tribulation, but
No, but I'm saying that conspiracy mindset that you say you grew up in, was that based on a belief of
it
a
seemed like it was more based around economic collapse. I don't know
okay.
if tribulation was definitely. I mean, partially like that could get preached and used, but it was definitely around like the economy is going to collapse. The
Hmm.
economy always collapses. Uh, how apocalyptic it's going to be, is to be debated. But still, I mean, yeah, the economy can always collapse. Like we do live in a fragile system.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but if you live your life like it's going to collapse
Right.
constantly, then you're
Right.
not going to get anything else done.
Right. You're
Yeah.
not going to
And
be
so that's where like when it's a hobby for people, it's fine and good and fun, and they don't let it. I think
don't let it rule your
there's a
life.
number of different kinds of conspiracy theorists, or people. There's people who don't believe it, people who like, oh, maybe not. There's people who have a hobby out of it where it's fun, but it doesn't really affect their day to day life. And then there's the people who are all in.
Hmm.
You know, and we were probably in. My parents were in the realm of like didn't affect their day to day life, but like, ooh, prepare for the end. but when you're a kid, when you're 6 years old, 5 years old, and you're being told that all the time, it has a deeper effect on you. Um, Whereas
Hmm.
like the Mr. Mythos guy is, I think that's more fun because I would put that in the category of like nonfiction fantasy,
Right.
where there's a bunch of stuff, it's a bunch of things that have been heard or said, myths, this and that and the other thing,
I like to.
you know.
It's like alternate history almost to a degree. It's just like untold history, if you will,
Sure, but
potentially.
is there a advanced technological civilization living inside the earth that has tunnels to every single
Right.
country, and they're hiding from us until we prove ourselves enlightened and worthy?
Mm.
I don't know if that's provable. Basically, like Shangri-La or Shambhala or
Well, the latest thing was this guy from L.A. He was a Starbucks barista, and he like worked his way up the ladder or something, and got a gig working in an underground tunnel stop at a Starbucks. And supposedly there's tunnels all through LA where the elite and Hollywood
mm,
elite can travel,
to and from.
to and from, and they got to have their Starbucks. And he says that he worked down there, but his NDA ran out or something, so now he can talk about it.
Mm,
I'm like, oh, okay,
okay.
maybe,
I don't know.
maybe,
Internet fame is a thing.
maybe.
Maybe.
I don't think I'll ever be that rich to find out for myself.
You don't. Maybe this podcast will get us there.
I mean, because Elon was working on that tunnel system.
Mm,
I think there is a working tunnel, one tunnel. The Boring Company started,
yeah.
but like
Best name ever for
what
a
they're
company.
right. What you're talking about is ultimately like a massive project. Now, I will say, I do believe that there's an episode of Blurry Creatures that describes and interviews this guy, and there's supposedly a tunnel from Washington D.C. all the way to Area 51 where you can get on
Just
there.
drive. Like a
Yeah.
train? Like, was it?
I don't think there's a bullet train or anything like that.
That'd be a long, dark road.
But supposedly there's stops on
Mm.
the way, and
For
obviously
Starbucks.
maybe for Starbucks, maybe for MREs. I don't know what they're feeding these guys,
Well, if you're traveling on the tunnel, you're probably hot stuff. So,
But you're talking about
I mean, you're gonna have
two
the
2 hour
personnel
travel time
from.
from Washington D.C. to
Well,
Area
that would have to
51.
be like faster than a bullet train.
I'm just saying, it's
That's like
like
what, two and a half
it's
thousand
super
miles?
fast. Maybe it is some sort of train. Maybe it's a maglev train. Who
It's a
knows?
Concorde.
Maybe.
Shove the Concorde down
Maybe.
there.
It's fun to think about.
Yeah.
Ultimately, I don't think, because it's not going to affect. I was talking with a buddy at church, and like, if anybody knows me for long enough, like, I'm going to talk about quote unquote conspiracy theories.
Mhm.
Like, it's not that I necessarily believe them. I really find it interesting, especially the alternate history slash undiscovered histories. I think that's fascinating. Just because I've always been that rebel in school that didn't want to,
Nonconformist.
yeah, didn't want to learn what they were, just taking it as face value, right?
Mhm.
So that in itself intrigues me, but it's interesting because these I don't know the alternate history on at face value, especially with the stuff with the pyramids
And when you
and
say alternate history, you mean like stuff they haven't taught us, as opposed to like alternate history. I think in a more of a genre sense would be like things
fictional
happening differently.
Abraham
So
Lincoln
Vampire
Vampire
Slayer,
Slayer.
yeah, or even Inglorious Bastards is it's alternate history
Right,
because
right.
they kill Hitler at the end. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Which is not how it went down
Mm-mm.
that we know of. Yeah, he could be in Argentina. There's a conspiracy theory for you.
There's a lot of Germans down there.
Mm. And they burn the body. Whenever they burn the body, question.
I just think it's
Hitler was abject evil, though. Not no debate there. Germans,
right,
Hitler
right.
and his higher ups were the bad
100
guys in that war.
100%.
Yeah.
So, talking with a buddy at church, and he does not think about this stuff at all. He
Are we gonna have him on the podcast?
We are. I would love to have him on the podcast. We're not going to talk about conspiracy theories, but we're going to talk about maybe some whiskey or some bourbon or something with him. You know who you are. So ultimately, And nothing against that. I think there's a lot of people that just don't want to go there. Um, but then I was like, okay, even in your own backyard, even in here in Nacogdoches, there's lore.
Mm-hmm.
There's things here that, you know,
Well, there's
maybe you should be aware of. I don't know. I find it interesting.
yeah, there's discomfort in approaching it because it messes up your paradigm. You either been lied to or you've believed a lie, and you're like, I don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
There's safety in believing in not having your beliefs questioned. And we see that everywhere, whether it's religion or conspiracy theories or forms of government or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I was just really intrigued by other people's point of view. Like, I will literally just ask Terrell the most random questions just to see how he ticks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You found any interesting ticks?
I think at the moment it's more like just, all right, Ben. I don't know where you're going with this, but let's focus on something else. I don't know.
I can't preach that from the pulpit.
Yeah, maybe. And I'm not trying to give him material by any means.
I don't think you are. But,
So the latest
but
one.
then he has to think about it.
Yeah, and maybe that's my goal in life is just to like prompt people to think about certain scenarios and think outside the box.
Well, you make a good podcaster then.
Maybe. But ultimately, so the last one, right? The last one was, okay, why does the Bible in Genesis tell the story of Abram and Sarai traveling to Egypt the first time, and then Abram's like, hey, this is my sister, so that he doesn't get killed, right? And then a couple chapters later, there's some other king.
He does it again with
does it again
with the Abimelech, the Philistine.
Amorite, maybe. I can't remember.
I didn't refresh on that, but I believe it was Abimelech.
Yeah, it was Abimelech, I think.
But
And so I just asked Terrell. I was like, why did they mention it twice? Like,
well, it's two different. It's framed as two different stories.
It is completely two different. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the middle.
Why?
With
Why
Lot
is
and
it
all
done the
kinds of
same
stuff.
way twice? Why did did Abram not learn his lesson?
It was Abram, yeah.
Or is there a reason?
And the second time he asked, he tells the king, he's like, well, she is my sister. We just have a different mother.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I still think he was lying about that. I don't think I think she was a cousin. But like if
I didn't go back and fact check the lineage to see if that lined up.
Like, it's not very super clear on the lineage of who her parentage was. But I do believe in the cohesiveness of the Bible, where like if God gives a law that says, hey, this thing's a death penalty, you're not allowed to do it.
Yeah.
He's not going to source it from back over here through lineage. So like, in the law, marrying your sister is a death penalty. Okay. Anyone who's a direct relation, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister.
But the law was founded after.
Yeah, but he calls it an abomination. He's like, don't do this thing. It's an abomination that the heathens around you are doing. Don't do it. I don't think that Abraham, the father of Israel, or the father of Isaac, who was the father of Israel.
Islam too.
Yes, exactly. Father of Islam as well, Ishmael.
Had many sons.
Yeah. But I don't think that he would have used that source of lineage in order to create Israel.
Right. No. He was lying.
Like I've had people argue to me like, well, Abraham wouldn't have lied. Abraham was righteous. It's like he did lie.
Yeah, he lied twice.
He lied
twice.
Okay, and also I do think that marrying your sister via the law is a greater sin than lying to someone who might kill you if you think they'll find out the truth about whether you're married, because she's so fine.
Right. So even that was a lie on top of a lie.
Good looking woman.
But wasn't she old by that time too?
99 or 90,
bro.
90-ish.
Why are you lying?
This must have been a good look. I mean, he did take her, and like the Pharaoh was like, "Hey, go get that woman, bring her into my house."
Wild. That's so wild. You're gonna get a barren 99-year-old.
I don't know that he knew she was barren, but she was 99 when she had Isaac.
Yeah.
Again, we need a fact checker back there.
We do need a fact checker. If only we had somebody. It's interesting. Twice. I just, for whatever reason,
a lot of things happen twice in the Bible.
I got stuck on that, and I just could not get past
So do
it.
you think it's a repetition or like a mythos rather than factual? Like as far as biblically historic?
I don't know, because you're talking about that that time period being so far removed from you. You have to really put yourself in that scenario. So
Well,
over
it would be 400 years before the guy who wrote it. So
presumably,
yeah,
yeah,
Moses.
yeah.
If Moses wrote
Moses was writing it
Genesis, the
down.
first book of
Yeah,
Genesis, the first book of Moses. So
at least
presumably,
400.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah, at least 400.
yeah, because they went down to Egypt, then they go back over here. Then Jacob brings them all back to Egypt again
So if you count,
to
but
grow and
if
multiply.
you count the numbers from actually when Jacob and family went into Egypt to live with Joseph, it's
Hmm.
210 years from then to Moses. So when
Yeah.
when God made the promise, the 400-year promise to Abraham, it was 400 years from that point to them leaving Egypt. It wasn't 400 years from Isaac and or sorry, Jacob and family moving to Egypt. Because if you just the years are there, like the age of because I think Moses is like fourth from that line.
Think about how much biblical history that our modern day faith like relies on,
Hmm.
and ultimately Abram didn't have any of that, and was like
No,
literally just
well, we don't know what he knew.
hearing the voice of God.
So if have you read Jasher?
I have not read Jasher.
So in Jasher, like one of Moses's or sorry Abram's mentors is Shem.
Right.
So he would have
Okay.
known Shem directly, which also calls into question like why was Abram like, well, old God, an old man can't have children, if Shem, you know M- Noah lived to what, 600?
Mm,
No longer.
maybe
Again, we
longer.
need to refresh my numbers there. Was it 600 when the flood happened, or he lived to 600? And then Shem would have lived for a while, and they're I mean, according to the Bible, and then their lineages slow, their ages shortened.
Right.
But Abraham, who lived 175, would have had connections to people who lived for a long time. So why was he like, hey God, like man, you can't have a children this late in life?
Obviously, he was skeptical
Yeah, he was skeptical. That's when God
when
promised him
ultimately
when
he was
God
talking with
promised him a
Shem,
son. He's like, hey, we're all so old, we can't have kids at this age.
which relatively they weren't that old. Is that what you're
In
saying?
perspective, like
Yeah.
Shem and Noah and
Yeah.
people that he would have known. Jasher's a wild book, though. If you go read
I'm
Jasher,
gonna
there's
have
a
to read
bunch
it.
of stuff about Nimrod in there. Uh,
Nimrod's
a
an interesting
spoiler
character.
alert. There's some spoiler alerts there, but yeah, Esau kills Nimrod and then steals his the skin, some kind of skin that was on his back, and then he has to flee, and that's when he runs into Jacob and has to sell his birthright for pottage. So there's a
Hmm.
little more going on there. According to Jasher, Jasher is referenced twice by the books of Moses, like as it's written in the book of Jasher. And it's referenced by Joshua. It's referenced in Joshua, maybe Judges, maybe somewhere in there.
Okay.
It's referenced twice in the Bible. Now,
See,
whether the book that we have that's labeled Jasher
is the actual
is the
book
actual book,
right?
don't know. But there's some wild stuff in there. Like, and I've read it. So if you start like judging extra biblical books against the spirit and like against the Bible itself, like does it sound like the same author? If God is the author of the books, obviously they had individual men who wrote them, but
Right.
presumably God's the author behind them. And voices I guess could move through translation as well, but when you read the Bible, it feels
Hmm.
cohesive as a book.
Yeah. I think they did a
uh
good job.
and then like I've gone and read, say, the Book of Mormon. It doesn't feel cohesive to me. It doesn't feel like it's part of the
Yeah.
Bible. No offense to Mormons. To me, like I read the book and I can't buy that. Whereas Jasher feels like it
Cohesive.
feels cohesive. I mean, there's some
Same
wild
with
stuff.
Enoch.
I haven't read Enoch.
You haven't.
I have
See, that's where
not.
I would say I did start with Enoch. Um, and it took me a long time to get to the point to just even entertain reading it.
Mm,
I don't know what I was scared of. I read a million other things.
mm.
Not much of a reader, but for whatever reason, here lately, this next generation of people are just like, hey, you don't have to like take it at face value, but just read it.
Yeah.
And then
Oh,
you
yeah, you don't
start
have to believe it.
and then you start like it the book of Enoch in particular, it just really adds so much more depth and context to the Bible in the Old Testament specifically. Um,
Or in the I would say that the Genesis, I mean, it's
yeah,
presumably is it written by Enoch?
the first
So
two
I haven't read the Enoch. I
potentially.
know that there's like multiple books.
There's like four, I think,
People believe in the first two, maybe, and the
potentially
other
were
ones
written by
are
him.
much more questionable.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Once I heard
So
that
what happens in the
it was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls, right?
okay,
Among
yeah.
I was like, okay, well, obviously there's something there if they hit it with the Dead Sea Scrolls, and that's how, moving forward we were
Its
gonna
lineage goes back a
yeah,
ways.
we were gonna base, when did they find the Dead Sea Scrolls?
70s?
70-ish? Yeah, okay.
If only we had someone to look that up.
Yeah, somebody. Anyway, so right, so what I mean by that is like, okay, so if you're gonna use that as an argument for the Bible is true, and these other texts were in there,
Sure.
including the copper tablet,
Uh-huh.
um,
Some wild stuff behind the copper
then
tablet
it's at
too.
least worth entertaining. And then you go even a step further to say, okay, it's referencing Jude, it's referencing all these other New Testament
I
books,
believe it's quoted a bit too.
like they know of it, right? And then you tack on, this is what I loved about it, was somebody broke it down like this, that when Jesus is casting out the demon, maybe outside of Galilee, I can't remember specifically where it's at, but he casts out the demon into the pigs, right? The I think it was a Leviathan,
Mm.
the Legion.
Legion?
We are
Legion.
Legion, right? Um, and they're like, hey, it's not our time. It's not our time yet. What are you coming to do? It's not our time. Well, there, if you read just your standard, even just your King James version, right? There's no really specifics about the time, but when you read Enoch and put it in place with that, it makes the timing and what they're talking about, these fallen Nephilim spirits that are stuck on this earth that we call demons,
Mhm.
right? It makes it perfect sense as to why they were saying, "Hey, it's not our time yet. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
We're not going down the pit just yet. What time? What are you talking about?"
Mm.
Right? There's nothing that like calls it flat out. Uh and so it just adds, I feel like it just adds seasoning to
So
the
is it
Bible, and it
so
just
what happens in the book of Enoch? Is it more like theological, spiritual, like kind of talking about the inner
there okay,
workings of
so
how
I think there's four. Don't quote me because I don't know.
no, this is Christians talking about shit.
Blur
Nobody's quoting anybody.
blurry creatures like went with Tim Alberino, and they like not revamped it, but like added a lot of footnotes to where Tim Alberino specifically was just adding so much more context to say, hey, all right, so when they're talking about the Prince of Peace, or even like the principalities, right? He'll reference back into the New Testament, he'll reference back into the Old Testament, right? And give you really good footnotes to make it make more sense.
Mhm.
Um, the first two, as discussed, I think they were written by Enoch. Everything's debatable, so I don't even want to debate. But then those are more in the style of, say, the Old Testament, right? They're just telling a story of what happened and blah blah blah. Then there's like the dreams that Enoch had, and then I think there's some sort of poetic, more psalmsy stuff.
Hmm.
You know, I haven't read it all by any means, like just barely, like literally just scratch.
I have them on the shelf. I just haven't.
Yeah,
My father-in-law, one of them. Well, I have a stepfather-in-law and I have a father-in-law. Um, the father-in-law, he put together his own like book of. So it's like all the books of the Bible. It's got Enoch in there. It's got the Apocrypha. It's got Jasher. It's all in one book that he bound up
yeah,
himself. And like this is his. And he's more of a messianic Hebrew believing
okay,
type, so he definitely goes back towards like the holy name and things like that.
okay.
But yeah, I should take a glance at. I mean, I've been meaning to.
I
It's
mean,
just
just start it and just start on book one and just kind of,
yeah.
like I said, I mean, it pretty much adds a lot more context with the Genesis story and the fallen angels coming down, marrying women, and it lends to circle right back to conspiracy, alternate history. It lends to why we're befuddled by these huge, massive uh, structures across the world.
Mm.
That there's such a visceral argument that the Egyptians built the pyramids. Um, well, as we get, a little bit further away from thinking that the ancient Egyptians, oh well, they had the technology.
Mm.
Did they really? Right? And so that's why I think there's such a big, not a mass deception, but definitely an understanding deception, right? Of like, wow, we don't want to go down there, right? We don't want to talk about the giant bones that they found across the U.S.
Mm.
In the Smithsonian's basement, right? Things like that. It's like, well, why are you hiding it?
Mm.
What is that? What does that prove if you're hiding it?
Well, I mean, okay, so if we assume that that's true, because like neither of us have seen those
Right.
things, all the photos I've seen are like, that looks photoshopped. But
We talk about giant bones.
yeah,
Okay.
the ones that I've seen, they're like, that
Okay.
looks photoshopped.
Now I will say, Glen Rose, Texas,
Okay. Yep.
near where I grew up, Central Texas, they do have a lot of They have dinosaur fossils and a lot of stuff out there,
Footprints.
and the huge footprints.
Yep.
Right
That's their
now,
main claim to fame.
there's a creation museum out there
Mm-hmm.
that I went to probably second grade, third grade, and this is how probably I was hooked from the get go
That's what I got
because
you.
they were talking about pre-flood. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but more than likely, flat earther, firmament, you know.
Mm.
And they did these experiments where they like had a hyperbolic chamber and like
Hyperbaric.
hyperbaric. What's hyperbolic? Hyperbolic is
Hyperbolic is like a
speaking it. Yeah,
sphere.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
like a part of a sphere.
Hyperbaric chambers where they grew all these plants and tweaked the nitrogen levels, and supposedly they started growing even bigger and past what they were
Yeah,
supposed
yeah.
to. Right,
Yeah.
right. And
Everything got
so
bigger.
I've seen the footprints, man. I've seen now could that be fake? Possibly. Could it be a Bigfoot? I don't know. But
I've heard stories
back
of
to your
people down there
point.
destroying them.
Yeah.
I've heard those stories.
Yeah. Why
Again, stories like so. You asked the question like, why would they
would they
hide
hide
these
them?
things?
Why would they hide them?
Well, okay, if we presume that it's true,
Okay.
then it proves God.
Yeah.
Like take flat Earth for example.
Yeah, exactly.
If the Earth is flat,
Okay.
God must be real because all of our assumptions about how the Earth was created via Big Bang and then through evolution and everything goes out the window if the Earth is a disk. Because gravity says like the rules of the universe and gravity say that things must collapse into a large mass must collapse into a ball. So I think that's why like if you're pushing this paradigm where God's not real and we believe in evolution and that's the going paradigm, then flat Earth directly threatens that. On top of that, like I mean, I've talked to people who are pilots who are like, "There's no way the Earth is flat."
Yeah, yeah.
So there's people who should be experts on again, like a pilot isn't that high up. Every piece of footage that you see of like even the ISS is it's used with a fisheye lens. So when you see that curve in
Mm-hmm.
all the footage, that's not the real curve.
Right.
That's not what our eyes are seeing when you're up there. It's still pretty much flat.
Yeah.
Because you're not high enough in order to see a legitimate curve.
And once again, it's not that at the end of the day, it's not affecting my day-to-day life if
No.
the earth is flat or not.
That's what I
And
whenever
if
someone
they're
tries
hiding
to
the bones or not,
yes.
right? Until I find some bones and have a story of my own to tell, and that they came and took them,
yeah,
I won't know.
If I have a fervent flat earther coming at me, and I'm like, my question is, how does this make me a better Christian?
Yeah.
And it's like, it doesn't make me believe in God more.
No.
And the round earth doesn't make me believe in God less.
Right.
So, like, I mean, yeah, proof is cool.
Yeah.
But that's not what belief is about. Belief is about faith. It's not about knowing so much.
So I go down a lot of YouTube rabbit holes.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah, mostly skirting the lines
I've
of
been. Yeah, go ahead.
conspiracy.
Yeah,
Um,
I skirted off into 40K, Warhammer 40K here recently.
you too?
Like the lore.
Bro, I think our algorithms are like matching up because mine started doing that too.
Mm.
That's
Well,
weird.
I think I searched it for some reason because it's like it's getting popular.
No, 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 no,
It's
no,
getting
no.
popular.
No, you start hanging around the same people, your Google algorithms are talking
Maybe
to
your
each
Google.
other.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
I got near your
Yeah,
phone.
there's something to that.
Ugh,
There's something to that
there's a
because that's
conspiracy right
weird.
there.
That's super weird because I've always liked 40K. I even have some of the little figurines
So
at the house.
I never was. It's like you hear about it in the
So
background.
mine is affecting yours.
Maybe you hear about it in the background, and I'm like, what is this stuff? So I've done some searches, like what the lore is pretty wild. There was a really good video that I watched yesterday, the day before, that was like, why do why does the woke or the current uh political cultural paradigm that's being pushed hate 40K? It was a really good video. I'll send it to
Do
you.
they?
Okay, they're making it to where like there's female custodies, which are like the Space Marine, a certain sect of
Gotcha.
Space Marines, and they're doing things to make it
To
more
pacify the woke.
But the way this guy explained it in the 40K universe, the idea is that the universe was born in consumption. You either consumed or you died. So that's like the paradigm that a civilization can only be successful through. So
Okay.
when in 30K, which 30K or 40K is 40,000 years in the future.
Mm-hmm.
30K would be 30,000 years in the future. There's this emperor who rules everything, who's eternal, who through science has made himself eternal. But there are gods and demons and
And this is
stuff.
off the video of the lore.
Yeah, this
Okay.
This was about why the
So
cultural
fictional
left does
history.
not like 40K.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Because where was I?
The emperor lived forever in the 30K.
When in 30, no, he's still in 40K. He's still
Oh,
like on the throne,
Oh, I
but
didn't even
like
know that.
not. He's like in a coma, but he's keeping the universe safe. It's weird. It is like this vast weird lore. But in 30K,
Not like
he was
Scientology weird.
He was he was like fascistic and like trying to bring this progressive world where everything grew forward and like mankind became better and there's prosperity. When you get to 40K, which is like the grim dark period, where everything is war, everything is death, everything is consumption, and the only way you can survive is by killing.
Okay.
And the Imperium of Man, it has this very like strict hierarchy of rules. It's more feudalist than it is fascist. Because you have lords and we follow the rules, we follow the religion because it's a religion based around the emperor. And they have the Imperium of Man has very strict rules about what gender you are, what you do, because there was this other group of people, the Eldar, I guess. Like again, I'm quoting off of the things that have infused into
Go for it.
Christians talking about shit.
Go for it.
When the Eldar, they were like a race that was very early in the universe, and they developed toward utopia and
like the elves in Tolkien.
Maybe I don't know, but they developed toward utopia and freedom and do whatever you want and hedonism, and they became a bunch of sex fiends. And then they got like possessed or led astray by some like weird sexual god who has like both male and female, and like it's weird. And it led them toward depravity and like the downfall of their civilization. And so it's like a counter to what the Imperium of Man is doing, where they're trying to be hierarchical, and like you fit into your gender role.
And the woke don't like that.
And the woke don't like that, which is why you're seeing things like, oh, there were always female custodies, which if you look back at the lore of there were not. Okay. And people get angry when you start changing their lore, especially with something like 40K.
Do you play?
No.
Have you ever played?
No. Although the Space Marines 2 kind of looks cool. I might try the new video game. Yeah, the new video game.
It does look really cool.
It looks pretty badass. Pretty cool. Yeah. Right now I'm on Horizon Forbidden West.
So I got into more of the medieval miniatures, painting those.
So isn't that Warhammer Fantasy?
It wasn't even branded Warhammer. These are offshoots that Warhammer models were all plastic.
Expensive too.
I can only imagine they were expensive or still are expensive. But these were cast. You could get like different sizes, obviously. But we had books. You would spend the time painting your whole army. I had a Norman army. I still have it at the house. I need to.
So just more like medieval.
Yeah, just you could pick and choose whatever medieval tribesman or whatever clan you wanted to form up, right? And so then you'd have a buddy that also is painting them, right? And then you have your rule book. He has his rule
Yep.
book.
Tabletop
Your
play.
table about this size, right? You build your we get these foam boards and we build little grassy knolls or whatever, and um, tape measures, and super nerdy, right? But what are you gonna do?
But this is not Dungeons and Dragons.
No,
It's
no, no. Dungeons and Dragons, in my opinion, is a lot of dice rolling. It's a lot of storytelling from the dungeon master,
mm,
and then obviously way more interaction from the surrounding party to affect the story. Whereas this is a strict set of rules and is strategic,
yeah,
right?
it's more
So you're
strategy.
you're using different battle maneuvers to obviously try and win against your opponent, right? So yeah, that's the basis of Warhammer 40K as well. Um, and I started getting into those little Space Marines, but once again, they're really expensive. So much so that like even
3D
like
printing.
the little paint, it would be the smallest little thing of paint was like 25,
Ooh,
$40.
wow.
Yeah, it
So
was crazy.
the 3D printing the advent of 3D printing
Yeah,
now,
yeah.
people are making their own models, which then is like
That's interesting.
copyright infringement, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I know they're like,
Mm.
oh, it's destroying the community because that's how game workshops
You
makes all their
still gotta
money.
paint the sucker.
No, but like as far as
You know what I mean, though?
game workshops, the maker of Warhammer 40K,
Yeah, yeah.
that's where they make a lot of their
Right.
money is off of the models.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the paints and the supplies
Yeah.
and the books.
I'm surprised you have to have branded paint. Like, why can't you just go get your own paint?
I mean, there's no one out there enforcing these rules. Yeah, you can go
How
get
would
your
they
own
even know?
paint.
Like, I get like knowing like what the models legit models, but the
I don't
paint,
know.
the
For
paint.
me, it was like a one-stop shop. I mean, if you're already in there,
Mm.
and they've got 20
Where is
variations of
this?
blue.
Is this like Hobby Lobby? Where are you?
No, they have GameWorks stuff in the mall, back in the Mall America.
Oh, so it's its own store.
Yeah.
But those aren't on every corner. I mean, they gotta
Not anymore. Not anymore. Probably not since 2006 ish. Yeah, I bet you they started dying off. But yeah, you could go in there. I mean, it probably wasn't any bigger than like a Claire's, right? Super small.
Claire's. It's been a long time since I've been in a Claire's.
Before the internet, right? But they had, like I said, 20 shades of blue, right? Or whatever the case may be. They had such a wide variety. And it's a one-stop shop. But yeah, man. That's so interesting that your YouTube algorithm is pulling you that way.
Well,
You have to send me that video.
The thing is, when you start watching it, yeah, I'll send it. When you start watching them, it starts really like polluting your feed, for lack of a better word. It pushes your feed in a different direction, and then you start seeing that stuff. And the more you look at it,
Do you think it's
so?
so? Do you think it's?
I get mosaic shorts, which I cut them, I
Right,
make them,
right.
but like I'm on my personal channel, which is where I watch my stuff. I'm not watching 40K videos on the
Now they're
on the
talking to each
mosaic.
other. They're talking to each other.
But but I don't see those over there when I'm messing around on Mosaic, which I don't watch videos over there. When I go to the YouTube feed for Mosaic's channel, which is the church that we go to, it's the most generic YouTube stuff. It's Mr. Beast. It's all the stuff that when you first sign up for an account and you haven't given them any history, that's what you see.
Have you heard about the conspiracy theory about Mr. Beast?
Which one?
Running for president?
Running? He's too young.
No, eventually.
Eventually.
And ultimately how poignant that his gamer tag is Mr. Beast. And yeah.
I have not heard this conspiracy.
Rabbit trails.
Tell me, I would love to hear this
trails.
one. This one sounds interesting. Because like
that's pretty much
our
it.
kids from watching Mr. Beast. Because I'm like,
good.
I don't like the content. I don't like the exploitiveness of it.
Well, as of the recent debacle with his friend.
And that too.
And it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
There's so much. I mean, I can't speak high enough about Dude Perfect and what those guys are doing. Your kids watch Dude Perfect?
No, it's been a while since I watched them. That hasn't. Again,
so
that
Dude Perfect
fallen into their algorithm.
Dude Perfect came out with their own separate app, which just funnels their YouTube videos over there. And then they started doing that for maybe a month or two.
They're all Christians,
maybe
right?
longer. Yeah, really, really good guys.
Not that Christians can't
never
go
met
astray,
them,
but yeah,
I imagine we'd have a lot in common. But okay, so they did that for, I don't know. They already have so much content. It was like a couple good months that they were doing that. And then they started like, hey, and they made an announcement, I believe. I remember seeing an announcement. They were like, hey, parents, want to let you know we're also going to be including other people and inviting them onto the platform, our app. They got like Mark Rober, who does like a lot of engineering stuff.
Science stuff.
Yeah, and just like a lot of clean
That's
stuff that we
nice.
were already watching anyway. Like, man,
But
this
it's
is
it's curated.
yes. And I was like, this is perfect. I think a lot of it has to do with because I think they're just a little bit younger than us, but their kids are starting to get to that age as well. And obviously, as parents themselves, they're probably seeing it. They're like, hey, we're making this content. We need to take it a step further and really kind of dial it in,
Yeah.
which I think is awesome.
It's a two-edged sword because like we've become a culture of consumption, like constantly consuming other ideas and content and
Not creating our own.
contents that were there was like, oh, and you're not creating your own. But then if you're creating your own, you're only feeding what other people are watching.
Yeah.
So
Well, you
like,
gotta, I mean,
what
what are we doing
are you
here?
just
What are
add?
we
I
doing
know. Are
here?
you just adding more to the noise?
Well, I hope our fans appreciate
Or
just a good light discourse,
I would hope
just
so. Yeah.
talking about shit, right?
Hmm.
I was thinking about it on the drive over here. I was like, okay, Holy Spirit, what is the goal? Does there have to be a goal for this podcast?
Mm.
Does there have to be an underlying uh, point or message that, it's kind of built into the title, Christians talking about shit, right?
Hmm.
Christians ultimately little Christ, which is interesting about that. I heard a teaching about last week about how Jesus never called his followers Christians outright.
No.
Of course, right?
Hmm.
That because that term didn't come on, but many years
Is
later.
that term even in the Bible?
I don't think so.
I don't think it is.
But he's like, you're sons of God, right? You're
Mhm.
you're you're saints, you're sons of God, and that ultimately we need to step into that kind of mindset that we're not little Christ, we're not little Christians, right? We're sons of God.
Mm.
We're put on this earth for a reason to bring God's kingdom here.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what is that goal? What do you feel like the goal is of the podcast ultimately? Is it just to entertain, to
Uh,
give an alternate listening
so
experience for people?
the origin from where the idea came from, I think I was in church when I got it, or maybe not. No. So I was listening to Joe Rogan, which kind of looks like Joe Rogan's. Um,
A lot of people do.
a lot of people. It's kind of hard to break from the format. Like there's only so many ways you can set up a podcast. There's only so many people you can have people sitting around having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's either on couches or at a table. At any rate, it was one of those ones where he has his comedian friends on, and they were making some. It was pretty crass humor and jokes, and I'm like,
Which
and
one was
normally
it? Parks,
it was
Parks, and
probably a Parks Save Our Parks one.
Save Our Parks one. Those are always
And
funny.
normally I don't listen to those.
Yeah.
I listen to like when he has an expert on or someone who's or who know whatever, someone who's speaking at a more higher expert level, not
Right.
just the comedians, because it tends to get pretty crass.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, this would probably be pretty good if all these people were talking about the same subject, but they were Christians.
Hmm.
So like the Christian lens was coloring
Yeah.
what they were talking about or being seen through that lens.
Yeah.
Um, and then it was like,
And-
it should be called Christians talking about shit. It was like, it all came at once.
So
And I
yeah.
felt,
So ultimately, I've been helping Amos, right, with a couple episodes here, and we're working on this project together. I had the exact same experience in the truck on the drive over here. I was like, it was just this overwhelming showing and relating Christians, because I really felt like COVID definitely disconnected a bunch of people.
yeah.
But kind of just reinstating, hey, there's still successful Christians out here looking at the world from a different vantage point,
Mhm.
right? Looking, trying to make sense of this crazy
Yeah.
rock that we live on, but are not dull and boring and ultimately asleep,
Yeah.
right?
Maybe. So
Maybe.
I told the name to my dad. I was like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast.
Okay.
And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like, it's going to be called Christians Talking About Shit.
He didn't like that.
And my dad is a pretty staunch conservative,
Okay.
no alcohol, pastor. And he's like, oh, you don't want to name it that. That's a bad name. You will draw the wrong crowd. And I said, well, what crowd should I be drawing? He's like, well, I want to draw people who are going to people who want to change the kingdom of God or change the kingdom, whatever. I mean, even change the kingdom of God doesn't quite make sense because you're trying to bring it, not change it.
Right.
And I said, well, that's not who I'm trying to reach. I want to reach the people who are ambivalent, lost, church hurt, cynical, on the edge, where they're like, they're not off in the, I don't know which direction, but they're not in the church. They've been hurt by the church,
Yeah.
and there's nothing that really could be said by anyone in a church preaching from a pulpit that would reach that person.
Right.
And it's like, if they start listening to the podcast and they're enjoying it, like we have good conversation, yet to be judged. I don't know. I feel like I'm enjoying this conversation.
Yeah. I
I've
like it.
enjoyed most of them so far. And they just kind of see into our perspective that, yeah, like you said, we're normal people. I don't like to use that word normal because as Christians, we're called to be different.
Right.
So I wouldn't quite say normal, but
We're spicy though.
we're spicy. Yeah. Well, there's more, like we're Christians. We're talking about 40K, Warhammer
Yeah.
40K, one of the most gruesome things you could talk about in fiction.
Yes.
What else have we covered here? We got conspiracy theories and Mall of America.
Just ultimately living life, but coming from a place. I say ultimately too much. Coming from a place of, hey, I'm a Christian. This is what I believe. But I'm in this world. I'm
Yeah.
trying to make a difference. And be the salt
Mhm.
to this world.
But we're also
Um,
viewing things critically. We're not just we're trying
right.
not to walk through blindly. Like you question, like why did Abraham do this thing twice?
Right.
What does that mean? Why was it written that way? I mean, there's a lot of questions to be had, but I think ultimately, again, I'm saying ultimately now.
They don't have to be theological questions either.
No, but it's just a lens into the Christian worldview. And I've had conversations with people where they're like, um, I would listen to that. Like every single person that I've told,
Mm.
just about, when I tell them the name, they're like, oh wow, that is not what I was expecting. They laugh.
But I don't think
First they
that's our
laugh.
audience.
No, I think they are. No, first they laugh,
Yeah.
and they're like, that's not what I was expecting, but I would listen to that.
Okay.
They're largely people who go to our church, which tells you something about our church.
Right.
But I think it's something that's just needed to give that view into what Christians talk about and think about and how we view the world.
Mm.
That's
Yeah. 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 No.
that's
No.
my
No. No.
motivation and background.
No. I think you hit on it. Like we're not just over here singing hymns and
Not thinking.
not thinking critically about what's going on in the world. Although um, I do not like to talk politics. Um, that's kind of one of my biggest, like,
I think that
take it or leave it,
well, you can get stuck in a rut there, and yeah, I think it's that's also far too polarizing.
which is sad
Yeah,
because it's literally
no,
who's running this country.
we're in an era right now where like Republicans and Democrats can't be friends,
Yeah.
and that's not how it was 20 years ago.
What was the old saying that grandma used to say? You never talk about three things at dinner.
Like politics, religion, and
What's the third one?
the weather. No, not the weather.
You definitely talk about the weather.
Um,
Politics were grouped in with that, right?
yeah,
So that lends to at some point in recent history.
but it's got to the point where we will, when a family gets together with differing views, they refuse to not talk about politics.
Well,
Like the crazy uncle got to talk about Trump.
we got too comfortable talking about it. People used to mind their own business. Maybe that's what it was.
I think we got too comfortable talking about it. How do you mean?
Well, too polarized and comfortable, essentially like forcing what I believe on what you believe.
Hmm.
Or if you don't believe exactly maybe that's what it is. It's too selfish for me to be like, well, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But so there's no discourse. There's no talking.
But I
Whereas,
don't. People aren't coming with good faith or with a desire for the betterment of the other person. They want the other person to agree with them.
but I'm saying, obviously that saying stemmed from something,
Yeah.
right? So ultimately,
Well, it was a point of conflict, and the family is not a place for conflict.
exactly, right.
And
Don't
go
bring
out
that to
into the
my
world and you
table.
develop your own thoughts and feelings about things, and then you
Yeah.
bring it back as if it is the end all be all that you believe the way I believe, And I still do believe, like, if you don't affect politics, politics will affect you. I think that happens to a certain point. Like, and the biggest way we vote is with our wallets. What we spend our money on is what we vote for. Um,
What do you
looked
spend
up a
your
whole
money
lot of
on?
food,
I know,
food,
man.
house, car, you know,
There's really
microphones,
there's really not too much left over these
gear,
days.
cameras. How do you mean? Not too much left over?
Well, I just remember a couple years back.
You mean like, yeah, your dollar's not going as far as that? You
Yeah,
mean if
yeah.
everything's more expensive?
Yeah, just
Yeah, no, inflation is a bitch. Like,
it's real.
yeah, it's real.
I make a lot of money, dude. Not a lot. I mean, compared to
You're not hurting.
Elon.
You're not hurting.
Yeah, I'm not hurting.
Yeah.
But it's still like what? What? How much? And it just takes you and I guess that's sort of a reminder to be like, "Oh, well, remember who you're voting for
Mm.
this
Well,
coming election."
we bought a house, and like I know that if we had bought the same house 2 years ago, I think our house payment would have been about a quarter, a third lower than what it is.
Mm. See, we bought it around that time. So I can only imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, so living on the road for so long, that really jaded that dollar too.
Mm.
Because when you're paying $400 a month for a lot and a fifth wheel off the side of a mountain in Colorado,
Yeah, sounds nice.
yeah, so beautiful.
We thought
Um,
about doing that before we bought a house.
but
We
you,
got 5 kids.
but you know what I
Well,
mean? It's like you pay it, you're done, and then you're spending money on adventures
mm-hmm.
or whatever, right? Going to do stuff. So now that we have put down roots, we have, I guess, being almost 3.5 years into this house, it just, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I've always been kind of a nomad. And so I love my house. I love this community that um, I'm trying to,
Cultivate.
well, not even cultivate, but just be a part of, right?
Sure, like yeah,
Like it's kind of,
embed yourself in.
yeah, rather than just floating around from city to city or wherever where no
Yeah,
one knows you, there's something to be said about seeing somebody at Walmart. Like, oh, hey, I know that person, right? And I
see, I
do,
grew up. Like want to avoid people at Walmart.
yeah.
Like
No,
I don't
I
like that
and
social. Like, oh, I don't want to go
no,
talk to
I'm
that
not going
person.
out of my way to find
Yeah,
people by any means. And probably if I do recognize somebody and I'm not
it's just my
in a
social
mood,
anxiety coming out.
if I'm not in a mood, I'm not gonna go out.
Yeah.
I'm not just.
If I saw you in Walmart, Ben, I'd come say hi.
Well, thank you. I'd probably say hi too. But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm rarely in Walmart. I hate to shop. I'll be out in the car. Um, but you know what I mean. Okay, so
Yeah.
like just even with our community group, right? I can pretty much say that most of the people, no, all the people that I know in this town are from church, from my community group. Um, but really just kind of doubling down on that to be like, okay, it's not just Sunday, it's not just see you on
Mhm.
Wednesday. It's like, hey, how can I interact with these people on a day-to-day basis where it's actually meaningful? Um,
Yeah.
the other day I helped a buddy that goes to our community group clean out his garage. And I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what I was about to walk into. He was like, "Yeah, I'm a little, just be careful." He's warning me before going in here, and it wasn't even that
I know.
bad.
We all worry about
It
that. We're like,
wasn't bad. I was like, "Dude,
oh,
this
my house
is
is a mess. I've learned to get over that. With like, oh, my house is a mess. Like I
yeah,
have, again, 4 children that are of age in order to mess up the place.
right."
And you're
We
like,
had,
and then you go over to other people's houses who have the same number of kids, and their house is the same mess
yeah,
because that's life.
yeah,
And
exactly,
we're so
exactly.
used to seeing this TikTok, Instagram world of perfection of other people's lives.
I don't live in that bubble anymore, man.
I know.
It's awesome.
I've stayed out of that bubble.
I I I I was in that bubble for a long, long time. And I don't really think I ever got a complex or even got to that point of I was comparing myself to other people. That's just not my algorithm,
Hmm.
you know? Probably more my wife's algorithm, maybe. I hope not. Hope she's not comparing us to other people. I don't think she is. But you know what I mean? So, but a couple months back, just quit it. Just quit all social media. I still scroll the YouTube shorts,
Yeah, YouTube
but
Shorts can get
I've
annoying.
found that they're not as
Appealing?
no, not even necessarily appealing, but just as almost maniacal. I for whatever reason, being on Facebook and Instagram particularly was what I was addicted to. I'll admit it. I was addicted, right?
Okay.
Though that algorithm like is really really good at just really keeping you on that platform.
Hmm.
And then picking up on trends on how how you interact with different posts or whatever the case may be, and just the
So I'm a non-interactor. Like I don't like stuff. I don't
no,
leave
I don't.
comments. I
No,
don't
I
I don't
don't.
interact with anything that I'm like I'm a lurker.
Unless I'm trying to purposefully tweak my algorithm, I'm the same. But it also picks up on how long you view on it. If you close the app before finishing that whatever post it was or whatever, right?
Mhm.
It picks on a lot of different stuff. So although you may say you're a lurker, it's still picking up on
Oh
some
yeah,
sort
no,
of
no, it knows what you're
yeah,
watching. Yeah, and it knows how long you've watched for,
right.
whether you swiped away within 5 seconds or 30 seconds or watched all the way through, and then
Yeah.
it decides, hey, I'm gonna show you more Warhammer videos.
But I found that that algorithm was more malicious in my opinion.
It's an interesting word to use.
Yeah. Yeah, especially as a Christian man trying to be uh just living a I'll say it a pure life, you know. Um
So okay, malicious. Like, what's it showing you that makes you feel like it's pushing you toward impurity?
well just not even just just spending too much time on a single post, even if I thumbs down it for whatever reason, it would still like try and get back in there. Just try and weasel its way back in there.
Mm.
Whereas I personally have felt that the YouTube Shorts algorithm, yeah, if you
And
start watching Warhammer or searching for Warhammer
yeah,
40K stuff, they'll pop up there for a little bit, but it picks up pretty quickly.
as soon
Like
as
I'm
you're not
scrolling past,
interested in that
yeah,
thing
it's
anymore, yeah,
gone,
it moves on to the
it's
next
gone.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Totally. Like,
but
yeah, there's
for
stuff like a week, 2 ago where like it's in the feed, and then you start swiping away from it, it's gone. Like you don't see another one of those.
right, exactly. You used to get a lot of like Dragon Ball Z clips
Mm.
for whatever reason, and they would just and so
You a Dragon Ball fan?
I couldn't tell you the lore. Um, the whole saga, I love the idea of it, but I felt like the episodes were just way too drawn out and
Mm.
just couldn't get really. I love the artwork as a kid, things like that. But so that was reminiscent. I was like, oh, haha, watching it, and then sure enough, the next whatever it was all Dragon Ball, these whole things, and then I amused it for a little while, right? Like, oh yeah, that was funny, haha, right?
Mm.
Kind of followed somewhat of a weird a weird story that I never actually watched, but it's kind of congruent. These guys that make these shorts are really good.
Mhm.
Um, but then once I got bored of it and was like, all right, I'm done. I don't want to. I don't want this to fill my feed anymore. I'm
Yeah.
bored of it. I found like it disappeared
Yeah, it
relatively
goes away,
quickly.
but not
Um,
on Instagram.
no, man, it was just I don't know what it is, and maybe I don't know. I can't speak to that because YouTube is all about more of a creator space and things of that nature. Um, I tried to just kind of like unfollow people that I didn't know.
Some subs out there,
Yeah,
man.
they do.
Somebody out in the streets got
They're
some.
booming.
I don't know if we're picking
They're
those up on the
booming.
mics, but
Um,
Da Vinci will clean it out.
but you know what I mean. It was just I felt it was more malicious
Mm.
for whatever reason. So, uh,
My wife and I were talking about this the other day that the doom scrolling isn't so much, it's not like evil or wicked or like it's more ambivalence, and it leads you
mm,
to like being inactive or just consuming,
right,
whereas like you have good, you have evil, and you have in the middle.
Right.
And all this social media scrolling definitely seems to be largely in the middle. Like, yeah, there's stuff that's toward one side or the other.
Right.
But I mean, the Bible says that, if you
Idle
be
hands.
hot, no, it was be hot or cold. If you're
Oh yeah.
lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth. And social media feels so lukewarm. You're doing nothing. You're not, and you don't remember either. Like I'll remember a good 40-minute essay that I watched on YouTube. I hardly remember a short. Like, they don't stick with you. They just dawdle the time away.
Short-term memory.
Yeah. Like, I'll remember stuff on a good podcast. And then
Yeah.
and there's like a community aspect. Again, like going back to the community thing that you were talking about, where like you found a tribe. It's good to be part of a tribe. And it's good for that you're not part of a warring tribe that's trying to kill some other tribe. That's not good.
Right.
But like being part of a tribe where like you have people that that you can rely on does a lot for the human psyche.
Yeah.
Because we were meant to be together. We came up in a world that was, dangerous and destructive and would kill you if you were out by yourself. So you had to be with the tribe. It was built into us to not be loners. And that's also another thing with social media and the internet. The way it's gone is it's gotten us into isolated bubbles where we have lots of thoughts and ideas, but we don't actually interact physically with other people
Mm-hmm.
through those thoughts and ideas, because we'll find out that a lot of them are garbage when you actually interact with real people,
Right.
rather than just, again, like you type out a mean comment on the internet. Well, you get punched in the face for saying that in real life. But
Oh, I love where this is going. Okay, so not too long ago let's just take American history. The Wild Wild West, right?
mm,
You could get shot
oh yeah,
for lying to somebody, right?
yeah,
Words meant something.
and then that person would get hung.
But you get what I'm saying
Yeah,
though.
yeah. It
A
was
man's word.
You were careful how you spoke to others.
Yes. There was definitely
Now,
and
I don't. I think it's a little more gruesome than we make it out to be via Hollywood, because a lot of our ideas of the West are 1960s spaghetti westerns.
take it colonial.
But it was a
You
dangerous
had
place.
duels
Oh yeah,
over disagreements.
yeah. You had fistfights in Congress.
Right.
It was a
So
different time. Yes,
there's definitely a different time. But I'm saying
we are very removed from violence.
we are removed from violence.
But where are
Yes.
you going? That's a different direction than
Yeah.
where
The
you're
way
going.
what I'm going with is we've lost touch with the scripture talks about our words being a sword.
Yeah, let your yea be nay.
And
Maybe your yea be yea and your nay be nay.
if you could just really, if you are a Christian out there that really truly believes that the Bible is true and the words that come out of your mouth have the power to heal, to bless,
Mm.
or to curse and kill. Yeah.
Well, and that's where the scripture says
Yeah.
that every idle word will be accounted for. And what do you mean, do we really think about what those idle words are? Like, it can be talking about football, movies. I mean, like things that don't contribute to the kingdom of God.
Right.
Now, there is something to be said. I do believe entertainment is important. There's a reason we seek it out so much, because we need that decompression and unwinding. The world's a tough place to live in. And
Mm-hmm.
I think we need a level of escapism. I think we escape too much. But like, if your words are not contributing anything to the kingdom of God, are they of value? We speak a lot of idle words.
Well, Terrell's been really preaching about just saying things out loud. He'll say that in his sermons, and we're just talking with him, just saying literally praying out loud. And I feel like that's under a basis of, hey
Like
guys,
vocalizing your prayers. Is that what you mean?
right,
Yeah.
right,
Rather than just in your mind.
right,
Does God read your mind when you pray?
mind speak. Yeah.
I
I'm
know what you're
sure.
saying.
I'm sure God.
I've toyed with that idea for a long time, where it's like, oh, do your prayers really, like, yeah, God knows what's in your heart, but are your prayers really impactful if you're just
No, I
speaking
think
them in
they
your
are.
mind?
I think they are because you were saying them out loud. There's power literally in the words that you speak, that they go out into the ether. Maybe the angels collect the prayers and create and fashion weapons to fight the enemy.
That's out there. Yeah.
I'm not opposed to that idea, but the same could be said about negative words and things that could be feeding negative things.
So what about profanity? I mean, there's a profane word in this podcast's title, via common culture nowadays.
Well, everything is created from God. I don't think I definitely feel like our limited human brain can't really comprehend what the power of our words. There's probably intent tied to that. There's probably all sorts of layers and dimensions tied to those words. With regards to what you're saying about
Mm.
profanity. So intent probably has like, you know, a lot to do with it.
Do you think the syllables and pronunciation have power? I guess I'm going down a path here too with like my parents, where they're like, they're very anti profanity.
Mm,
And it's like, okay, shit. Shit in the name of the Podcast. There's shittim wood in the Bible. The ark was made out of shittim wood. Or was it the Ark of the Covenant? One of them was. One was made out of gopher wood, the other one was made out of shittim
Ark
wood.
was made of gopher, I thought.
The Noah's Ark, I believe, was made out of shittim wood.
Okay.
The Ark of the Covenant, I think, was made out of gopher wood.
Okay.
Uh, but my point is it's got the same sound. So is it the
Right.
intent?
So once
Is
again,
it the intent,
yeah, but the
or is it the
no,
the
it
syllables?
cannot be the literal
Because
syllables
then
that
that's
come out of your
casting
mouth.
spells, like in Harry Potter.
No, 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 no. It cannot be. Cannot. We've got too many languages. There's a reason God came down and freaking just
Dispersed.
dispersed all of Babel and divided up the nations of these principalities.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a reason. It can't be based on,
So,
because the intention in words and literature changes with every
mhm,
generation.
yeah,
So no.
words change their meaning.
So no, it has to be tied with intent.
Okay,
It has to
I
be.
agree. I agree.
So there has to be so back to prayer, right? Back to actually physically, hey, love you, prayers and kisses, or
Thoughts and
right,
prayers.
thoughts and prayers. But if you're not actually taking the time out of your day to like vocalize prayer towards that person, or even just stopping what you're doing and just praying for that person,
Mm,
hey, I'll be praying for you. Yo, be praying for you. Got you. I'll be praying for you.
yeah.
Right? Why not just stop what you're doing and just pray for him?
Mm.
Right? So there has to be, and if you're not in the same room with them, but still believe that prayers does matter,
I guess the question I'm
there's
asking now is like,
power.
why? Why is it that prayer matters to God? I think we need Garth or Terrell in here to talk about this. We're probably
Well,
this is above our pay
doesn't
grade.
it say that it's especially worship is like incense,
Yes,
and
yes,
it's
no, all those things. But I think that like it's going from the cynical perspective. We're sitting here talking about how prayers spoken out loud would be more powerful than prayers that are thought, whereas a bunch of people would be like prayers don't exist at all because God doesn't exist.
right.
So just coming from that perspective of like why would vocalized prayers
Well, I'm not
matter
even
more than thought prayers?
take it back even further. I'm talking about the things that you say.
Okay,
Like
bind you.
even if you want to take a new age approach to it, where manifesting, you know, they're still saying things out loud.
So the words that you say bind you.
They matter. Yeah,
Okay.
they bind you to either curse or bless someone,
Well,
and
they certainly affect your psyche and will bring about, like fulfilled
well, and
prophecies, like self-fulfilled prophecies.
What does Jesus talk about? He's talking about bringing heaven down here,
Hmm.
binding what is up in heaven down here, not the other way around,
Mm.
right? So there has to be something about vocalizing something in the ether, and whether it be negative or positive,
Hmm.
and sending it out into the physical plane, right?
Hmm.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know. And as a Christian, what does that mean? What does that ultimately mean moving forward? Um, if you truly believe that, your words have meaning and intentionality behind it, and if the scripture is true, that it is a sword, a weapon, um,
Mm.
you know,
So how do you feel about imprecatory prayers?
What's imprecatory prayers?
That's like praying damnation on someone else, like your enemy. David does it a bit. But it's definitely something like I've seen a few people do it, and every time like you see it, you're like, "Ooh, I don't know if you want to be doing that. That seems like dangerous territory." And we definitely as Christians, like we don't do that. Like you never hear a prayer like that in church. Maybe in some pretty hardcore religious
Did
churches.
Jesus ever play any?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No, he never prayed
The
against his
wor-
enemies.
the most controversial was the pay unto Caesar and the toppling of the. I know where you're going to take this. Yes, there's a plenty of more controversial with regards to what Jesus was all about, but you get what I'm saying. Like that as an outsider looking in, you'd be like, wait a minute, whoa, he went in the temple and just started thrashing,
Flipping tables.
just thrashing stuff. Like
Yeah. Well,
that's not very Christian like.
they made a mockery of the house of God.
Yeah.
He definitely seemed to take that part seriously.
So there's some righteous anger there.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's something to be considered when we make a mockery of the church. Like taking God's name in vain is a serious thing in the Bible.
I thought it was mocking the Holy Spirit versus mocking
Well, that
God.
would be blaspheming the Holy Spirit.
Blaspheming the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, whatever that means. I'm not sure what that means
I don't
yet.
know what it means either.
I don't know either.
I mean, as a Christian, it's like, all right, we're not gonna, all three of them, we're not gonna blaspheme you
No.
or take their name in vain.
No, but like, thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain. Like when people say, don't say that,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, well, one, God's a title. It's not a name. And two, that's not the context.
Yeah.
It's not what you should be put to death for.
Right.
Whereas if you're a televangelist who's like preaching to millions of people and then you're sleeping with the secretary in the background, like you're taking God's name in vain. If you're embezzling money from the church, you're making God look bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I grew up in the household of gosh, darn it.
Like you weren't allowed to say those things, or
fiddlesticks.
those were the permitted
No,
words.
I'm saying I'm saying those were the alts.
See, so I grew up in the household of the alts weren't even allowed because
The
you were
alts
saying
weren't
the
even
same
allowed.
thing. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
like honestly, somebody's saying frickin', like you might as well just say the F word at that
Right.
point. For me, and like I'm at a point where like I think your words, your intent is what matters, not the syllables that come out of your mouth, not the phonetics that come out of your mouth. And so like I don't have a problem with swearing. It's not covered in the Bible.
Right.
It's more covered by idle words and or if it's to cause a brother to stumble, if you're around someone who's really offended by profane language,
Yeah, and
you should avoid it because you're gonna be a problem. You're gonna make God look bad, or
right.
you're gonna turn that person away from you, something like that. But amongst you and I, like neither of us are bothered.
Yeah,
I don't think your language should be crass or vulgar or show ungodly intent.
Well, the fruits of the spirit. I mean, that's what we're trying to produce here.
Yeah.
No, but back to your point though, is you're exactly right. Is the Holy Spirit works. Let's talk about the big one that's coming up, Halloween. Do you think we can get this episode out by Halloween?
Yeah, this will probably be honestly because your fact checking and stuff in the next one. This is in future episodes that we've already filmed.
Perfect.
This will probably be the next podcast.
Halloween. What do we do as Christians about Halloween?
I think we're gonna go hide in a corner somewhere.
What do we do?
I texted Terrell the other day and I said, "Hey, what are you not doing for Halloween?"
What do you? I mean, that in itself has such a wide. Is it genuinely just Christians wanting to dig their heels in and say you're not gonna take away my holidays?
Which perspective? So are you coming from Christians who want to do Halloween?
Yeah,
that's the perspective
that just want to tweak the name to Fall Festival.
Oh yeah, I don't agree with that.
Like, what are we doing?
So we grew up not doing Halloween, Christmas, or Easter. Like
no, not that far.
We did none of them. We do Thanksgiving and maybe 4th of July. Those were the only holidays that we and then outside of that we would do so. We would keep the biblical feast. So in place of Easter was Passover. We still were setting aside Christ's death and resurrection.
Just not on the actual...
Not on Easter.
Yeah. The Gregorian calendar for Easter.
Well, the Catholic basis for when
right.
things are done. Because Tara wants to have a podcast on Easter and Christmas and why we don't do it and why he thinks you should do it. I think that's where he's coming from.
Okay, that'll
Don't
be
quote me.
great.
Yeah, we'll do that one.
Spoilers.
But Halloween is like purely based in pagan.
Yes,
obviously.
that's what I mean.
And wanting to keep it, like our kids are, now that we live in a neighborhood in town, prime trick-or-treating territory. They're like, oh, we want to do Halloween. I'm like, we're not doing Halloween. Like, I'll go buy you the candy. If you want candy, I'll go buy you candy. It's not good for you.
Day after, we're doubling up.
Oh yeah, that's when you get the sales.
Oh yeah.
But like, again, like putting the word frickin' or darn or gosh in place of the actual words.
Fall festival.
Fall festival is no different than you're still doing Halloween.
No,
you're still, and that's where like, okay, Easter is based in Ishtar. It's a fertility goddess holiday that the Christians co-opted in order to convert other people. Like, we'll keep your holidays if you convert over. Yeah. Catholics did that a lot. And Halloween is no different. Like, and I think that it's just something that should not be done.
But even then, and I don't want to take the tangent down tying holidays into religious beliefs. But if we're gonna talk from a Christian,
but holiday does mean holy day.
Agreed.
That's its origin.
Okay.
Do you need more of this?
No.
Maybe
a little bit.
Just a spot.
Maybe a spot. But what I'm saying is, so the argument can be made for Easter. The argument can be made for Christmas. Thanksgiving.
We'll have that argument.
I'm glad to be a part of that. I cannot see anywhere.
There's no argument for Halloween.
There's nothing. So what is it?
No, because what does it
boil down to?
It's just a American tradition.
Okay, great.
I don't know how much they celebrate Halloween in other countries, but
is it wrapped in patriotism?
No, it seems to be just cultural. It's not. No, it's definitely. Like, I mean, nobody's waving flags. Nobody's going dressed as Uncle Sam on Halloween. Right. I think it's just cultural. It's like we do this with our kids. They have fun. They get to dress up as whatever the popular character is.
Our neighbors to the south, they do Day of the Dead.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, I just think it's the weirdest thing.
I wonder how long. I mean, if we had someone to fact check this, how long we have been celebrating Halloween the way we have. Like, is it something that got pushed by the candy companies? Because like Valentine's Day
it wasn't
commercialized.
It wasn't.
But there is a commercialization to Halloween.
There is, but it wasn't. I remember seeing a short documentary. Ultimately, this lady in this neighborhood pretty much started it as an alternative, and it just so happened to land on the pagan holiday or something Halloween? To that effect. Yeah.
This is back in like the 60s, 50s.
I want to say Leave It to Beaver.
1850s.
Let's Leave It to Beaver.
60s.
60s,
late
maybe
50s,
50s. 60s. Maybe even older than that. Maybe 20s. So I don't know. It just baffles me. It baffles me how, and I step back and it makes me kind of chuckle to see different churches kind of tiptoe around it. Because it used to be trunk or treat. You remember those days?
Trunk or treat.
Have you ever heard about trunk or treat?
Sounds familiar.
So when my kids were growing up, and I think a lot of people still do it, trunk or treat was a big thing. Where
you want to get rid of the trick?
Well, because it was unsafe to go walk the streets and collect candy. So they would park at the church parking lot.
Some razor blades in your
and they would dress up, and then they would decorate their trunks, and the kids would just walk around the parking lot collecting candy.
Which they've done at Mosaic. That's what they used to do. Fall festival.
Once again, I'm not against.
Which they've quit doing.
I'm not I'm just not going to participate in it. But if you guys want to do that, that's fine. If you want to be a part
of... We did that one year. I mean, because they've stopped doing the fall festival, I think for budgetary reasons.
Yeah.
And we went one year and we're like, this feels wrong. It just feels wrong. Because we're just mimicking what the pagan thing is.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at the Bible, like Old Testament, real Old Testament, when it mentions like the holy days, like God, like these are your holy days, these are your 7 feasts, and none other. Like you're not supposed to set up any other. Now, if you're going to get really strict with that argument, like, oh, well then Thanksgiving and 4th of July wouldn't even be allowed.
This is a controversial take. This is
The Halloween one?
we might lose some followers. We might lose some listeners. This is controversial. I mean,
our 35,
hang
our
on
35
tight.
listeners.
Hang on tight. But it just I don't
Oh, you mean the Halloween thing?
yeah. I don't see
So I would
see
see the other
how
way. Like I'm noticing more and more. Growing up in the 90s, early 2000s, everyone was pro Halloween. Every church was pro Halloween. Everyone just did it. It was something you did. I'm noticing a lot more now of people saying, I don't think we should be doing Halloween. This is kind of pagan.
Okay, take it the other way. How about hill houses? You seen those?
No.
Yo,
Is
you
that like
haven't.
is that like a ghost house or a spooky
No,
house?
this is a haunted
Haunted
house,
house. That's what I was looking for.
essentially put on by a church
Oh,
to convert,
scare you.
to scare you
Oh,
to Christ. Yeah. Like, if you don't come to Christ,
wow.
this is what's going to happen. Like, whoa, what are we
So,
doing
like,
now?
those tracks that you find, this is your life, but like brought to life in a hell house.
A hell house.
I don't know that I like that idea.
I don't know. It's like, whoa. I'm all for theater and dressing up and candy and
If you're just scared into being a Christian, are you a Christian?
no.
No, but like it's a question because a lot of preachers use hell as the tool to get people into heaven.
You may be a Christian, but you're definitely not looking at the big picture, and you're losing out on eternal reward and multiplying that reward once eternity does finally set
Your
in.
only reasoning for
It's
getting
sad.
there is because I just
It's
didn't
going
want
to
to
be
go to hell.
sad. Yeah, you're not going to be, in my opinion, you're not going to be
At the supper table.
you're going to be the worker with the talent that literally dug a hole and put his money in there, and because the master, he was scared. He was scared of the master out of fear. He didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, he did nothing with his talent.
Back to it.
Which I think it's
now
interesting that
now I've changed my position. I think maybe yes, fear could potentially get you into heaven, but ultimately what happened to that guy?
Oh, he was cast out.
So maybe he didn't.
I'd have to go back and read the exact language of the verse, but maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Like, it doesn't say he didn't, but it does say that there will be.
He took it away from him.
There will be many outside the gate with gnashing of teeth. Are those people in hell? I don't know. There could just be a middle ground where you're in the lowest position of the kingdom.
No. No middle ground. No purgatory. No. We're not going there.
Not purgatory. Just more like, if David's
upper echelon.
If David's at the right hand of the Father,
we're gonna have a class system.
There could be a class system in heaven.
You don't think your citizen card's going to get you in everywhere?
Let's say in the
all
new
access?
Heaven, in the new heaven and new earth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if David's at the right hand of the Father, he's given a special position.
King David?
Yeah, King David.
Okay.
He's been given a special position. I don't know the verse that's stated in, but it is stated in there somewhere. Fact check me. And
come at me.
Come at me. And there's other language in there about being. It talks about like people who show up late or you're not. I'd have to do a study on this one, but it talks about with like the marriage supper, coming at different times, being in different positions. I do think that there's possibly a hierarchy depending on how close you not. It's not by works lest any man should boast.
Yeah, no. There's definitely you're gonna be there's verses speaking about reward and being rewarded.
Yeah.
In turn, right? There's gonna be some. I wouldn't even call it a caste system.
It's hard to think what that even attains to, because we think it says mansions, like, oh, I get a bigger mansion because I was closer to God, and it's like, but you're not even going to be material at that point. Like when the disciples asked him, if if a woman's been married 7 times and they all get to heaven, like, who's she married to? And he's like, hey, there's none of that stuff going on in heaven, because you're basically spiritual beings at that point. You're not going to be worried about who you're sleeping.
No, you're not going to be worried, and you're going to be full of purpose. I feel like you're going to be.
But I do wonder what the purpose is.
Well, of course, let's
speculate.
Well, let's take it back all the way to Socrates.
We're gonna rule planets, and we're gonna be spreading out into space and all kinds of wild stuff. It's like, I don't know. I think. Well, okay. Here's the thing. It's like,
then why are you building a new Earth?
I don't know. But like we as physical beings tie a lot to expansion and security and ownership. And I'm just not sure that those things are going to apply to us as spiritual beings. Those desires and wants. It's like it's a big gray area for me. Like we look through a glass darkly. Like understanding what it means to just be a spiritual being and not a physical being, to not hunger, to not thirst, to not desire sex.
Does it
Like,
ever say not to hunger?
hmm?
Did it ever say not to
No.
hunger?
Well, no. I,
Because
I
I mean,
just mean
I
like
think there's
I
going to
mean like
be,
if you don't have a physical body, there's no reason to be hungry.
well, I think there's going to be manufacturing. I think you're talking about manna fell from the sky. There's some sort
What
of manufacturing going on
I don't know.
in heaven.
I mean, clearly, like, well, I mean, God spoke the whole world into existence,
Hmm.
so there's a manufacturing of
That's
the
our physical.
physical
There's
there.
our physical world.
Again, I don't know.
Yeah,
Like
I
the new
know.
heaven and new earth does definitely appear to be a physical place.
Yeah,
It's not just a metaphysical, spiritual place.
I'd like to think we're talking to the animals.
You know, this is the lion will lay down with the lamb will lay down with the wolf.
You think Adam was conversing with all the animals as they were walking by?
I don't know. Like, what's your name gonna be? Hey, what's your name gonna be? What should I call you?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Maybe.
If the animals even have that level of intellect, I don't know. If they could speak to people,
Dude.
I do. Maybe
Dude.
the octopus might have you might have an interesting conversation with him.
Oh, octopuses are crazy creatures, man.
They are weird.
That one that what was it? The teacher of the octopus?
I did not watch that.
I didn't watch
My
it either,
octopus
but I heard
teacher,
about
something like
it.
that.
Yeah, something
Won an
like that.
Oscar, right? I heard that some other documentaries that should have won.
Oh, I'm sure. But
Anyhow,
you're gonna definitely skew your audience whenever you just focus on a man and
an
his
octopus.
octopus. But who cares about the freaking Oscars anyway, bro? That's
A
like
lot less people nowadays. Their
it's so
viewership is way
trash.
down.
It's so trash, man. What are we doing? Giving ourselves the same old.
I mean, the last time a movie was both like popular at the Oscars and popular culturally, it was the Return of the King, Lord of the Rings.
Mm.
Because that won what 11 or 9?
And you know what they did? The cast. Because after the Oscars, they have this big, huge Oscar party.
Okay.
The whole cast and crew, I think, went to a fan party
Oh, that's awesome.
instead of going to the Oscar party
That's pretty cool.
and just hung out with all the fans. Like,
Imagine being one of those
wow.
fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been cool. That would have been really sweet. So my mother recently texted me. She's like, I just finished the Lord of the Rings trilogy. She'd never seen it.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know she'd never seen it. And I was like, so what are we thinking? She's like, yep, I really liked it. I was like, all right, all right, we got another one. We got another fan. We'll take it.
We were not allowed to watch them growing up because it was too close. The dad put it in the same camp as Harry Potter. I don't think it is. Like I've
Okay,
shown them
could
to
you watch Chronicles of Narnia?
No. Oh no, he didn't like C.S. Lewis because C.S. Lewis was a Calvinist.
Oh, that's a different point of view,
But we
man.
were allowed to watch Jurassic Park, which had evolution in it.
That is so interesting. Yeah, pick and choose your battles. What are we doing? No offense to your dad.
No.
I would love to meet him one
we
day.
talk about too, because like my sisters weren't allowed to have dolls because they were idols, but I could have action figures. Which I hate to say it, I kind of do that in my own house too. I don't like having dolls around. So
Yeah. Well,
but there's Lego minifigures everywhere.
I think as a father of two young women,
they're getting to be there now.
bro.
How's that going? Like your kids are older. Like we're the same age, but your kids are older than mine.
I know. We've been married 15 years. Got a 15-year-old and a 13-year-old. 13 in December. Do the math. Yeah, young women for sure. But to your point about the dolls, right? Um, my youngest had this cute little black baby doll growing up. And I just thought it was the cutest thing. Did not buy it. I can't remember where we got it from. I'm sure my wife knows. Um, but like it was just the cutest thing that she loved this little black baby doll. Um, as a 1, 2, 3 year
Mhm.
old. Um, but outside of that, once they got to the age of like Barbies or even Brats, I was like, no, 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 we're not there. There's too much tied in with all of that that
Well,
we're
it
not
doesn't
even
like
gonna.
it's not the lifestyle you want them leading.
Well, and I think that women definitely struggle with self
Oh yeah.
image so much more than men.
Yes.
And so why even go through that? Why even
And going back to social media, like I mean, that's a huge factor in
yeah,
self-image.
yeah, oh yeah,
More so, I far worse than Barbies or Brats or any of that stuff.
yeah. It's gonna be interesting. We're gonna be in like 15 years, and we're gonna talk about social media like it was freaking smoking cigarettes.
Mm. To start putting bans on it, you're not allowed to be on social media until you're 21. I mean, my
There'll
kids
just
aren't
be
getting it
this
until they're
big
18.
banner across the top. Social media may lead to
May lead to
depressing thoughts.
depression. Yeah. That's an
uh,
idea right there. Every time you open the app, it's a big banner.
like
Mm,
they try to do. You seen the cigarettes in Australia? What they do?
mm-mm.
They put on top of those labels. They put pictures of like
I've heard about people doing that, yeah, where they like uh, lungs that are been like
yeah. I think
20
it's
year smoker
Australia.
lungs.
Yeah, I think it's Australia that they
Yeah,
do that.
and like the all the
Like
bad imagery
I
and
don't know if
stuff.
that's a deterrent for the people that are already hooked, but probably for the ones that are trying to pick it up. I don't know.
So I grew up working with smokers, and it made me never want to smoke.
Really.
Yeah.
See, I grew up riding around in taxi cabs, smelling that secondhand smoke and thinking, "Oh, can't wait to smoke."
But
It was weird. It
you know
was weird.
it was their breath, their teeth, the cost. Like
Yeah,
smoking
yeah,
2 packs a day of Marlboro Reds, like that gets expensive. I mean, this was back in early 2000s,
yeah.
expensive. Now
That's
they're
true.
like ridiculous. Uh,
Yeah,
Now that being said, like I will smoke a cigar, I will smoke a pipe. I don't think those are nearly as deleterious to your health. Obviously, they're not. Like smoking 2 packs a day, it's pretty horrible for your lungs.
mm,
And there's also something to be like, all the amount of chemical that's in the tobacco versus smoking natural tobacco. There's a factor there too.
yeah.
But anyway, going back to like, raising teenage daughters.
Hmm.
How's that going? Where you at?
Well,
Because like I have 2 daughters. They're both younger.
yeah.
They're not
Well,
to that stage yet.
I have found. Let me throw some wisdom that I did not come up with, but I will definitely pass along. Is you definitely need to recognize when your kids are going through different levels of maturity and treat them as such.
Mm,
The same thing that may have worked when they were 5 um, is definitely not going to work over the 15. You know, so we definitely I've man, I've got some good girls. Some really, really good kids. I love them to death. I spend a lot of time with them because I work from home.
mm,
But whenever we did have any sort of disciplinary issues, especially around tech, as they were growing up, right? They want to play video games or whatever. And I would say 4 years ago, 5 years ago, Roblox came out on the scene
mm.
and it was all the rage. They wanted to play it. Of course, Minecraft was perfectly fine because you could play by yourself. You could play with 2 player.
The
Yeah,
Minecraft is
it's not.
it's very inert.
It's inert. It's not interactive with a whole realm of. It's not dependent on multiplayer.
Mm,
Let's just say that. So Roblox came on the scene, which is like Minecraft's older brother, and I just remember reading all the stuff about yeah, you can put all these filters in place, but those child predators still
mm.
are gonna find a way. And sure enough, like nothing Nothing crazy bad happened, but it was enough to where it was like, whoa, 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 pump the brakes. Yeah, we're not playing this game. And ultimately what it was like they were uh there was some feature in one of the games. That's one of the things that has a lot of different games where you could post a sign and essentially write on the sign.
Okay.
Okay, so now you're texting. You just went around the whole safeguard of
Mm.
texting, and now you're texting through the game and writing on a sign, right?
Hmm.
And so,
That's why you shouldn't teach your kids to read.
right. So I
We're
felt
not. Yeah, we're not.
when I
We're
found
not
that
that route.
when I found that out, I felt some sort of way about it.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, like we don't allow our kids
you're
to
not.
voice chat or
Yeah.
any of that kind of
So
stuff. Like that's all turned off
so we
unless it's with a friend that we know.
yeah. So we took it away, but ultimately we took it away, and I explained, and I sat down with them. I said, listen, this is what's happening. This is why we're doing this, and I need you to understand uh that you did nothing wrong in this
Mm.
instance, right? There's nothing you did wrong, and for whatever, and they were breaking the rules with some unknown other roadblockser, a roadblockser, roadblockser.
Roadblocks.
Anyway, right, and that could have been a very well another innocent kid in America or wherever, right? Very, very well could have been, but it could have been something even worse or whatever. I said, you didn't do anything wrong,
Mm.
but I need you to, and follow me, right? On the thought process. If somebody went so far as to go around all these safety features and just really just breaking it down for them, when they came to that age and really kind of just not disciplining them and saying, hey, well, feeling empathy, really,
Yeah.
because I grew up in the wild, wild west of the internet
Yep.
where
Same.
there
Same.
was no filter. And bro,
No,
I'm sure I am messed up from a lot of stuff that I've seen on the internet, right?
Mm.
And so my role as a Christian parent now is to not to shelter them, but to teach them. Because what's going to happen if I shelter them? Exactly what happened to me when I turned 17,
Yeah.
16,
Once you have freedom, you go hog wild.
hog wild. Okay, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to teach them attributes and teach them skills
Yeah.
because I see you have an interest in this. I want to teach you and go alongside you. Let's figure it out together.
Well, I think a lot of sheltering parents, they just try to protect for their kids from the world. They don't prepare their kids for the world.
Right.
And there's going to be a certain point where you are not there for them, and they have to be able to do things for themselves.
Well, the instinct was to immediately just rip it away from them and say, nope, you're not
Well,
playing
it's
anymore.
good that you went and like explained to them why.
But even then we went through the process of, you know, maybe it's just my analytical brain, but we went through the process of how this person,
Hmm.
because she didn't know how to innately know how to do that, to put up a sign and write on it, right? But we're going to sit there and take the time and say, okay, where did you learn this? How did you do that? Right? Blah, blah, blah. Right? Because I'm a gamer.
Yeah.
I'll jump in that game with you and we'll play together. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right? And
I play Fortnite with my oldest.
yeah, yeah.
It's one of those things we do together. Like it's fun to
And
get
it's
out there
just
and
taking that extra step
win around.
rather than just cut it off. Because I remember growing up just getting punished in a way where it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It was just like, wait, what?
Because I said so.
Yeah, because I said so was used all the time. And it's like, okay, so then you just kind of throw up your hands and you're like, well, when I get out of the house, I'm gonna do whatever I want. I'm gonna
Or
do
if your parent has rules but they're not attentive to you following them,
right.
which was kind of probably more my household where I mean my parents got divorced when I was 15. So
Same.
I stayed with my dad. The other kids went with mom. I just felt like, hey, I need to stay with dad. Someone has to stay with him. But yeah, after that point, like there was really no reign over what I did. Like if he walked in the room and saw something he didn't like, he'd say, "Shut that off," and you'd say, "Okay," and you'd shut it off, and then he'd leave, and you'd turn it back on. You know. So yeah, after at a certain point, like you get exposed to a lot of movies and a lot of internet, a lot
Yeah.
of video games that I know my parents wouldn't have approved of, but there was nobody there watching me.
Right. And without that,
Had to figure out kind of. I mean, like I will say that my parents did instill me with a pretty good, strong backbone of right and wrong.
Mhm.
I did receive that from them.
Right.
And yes, I've altered and tempered it over the years, but it's still large. It's still based in the Bible.
Yeah.
And I don't think their interpretations, for the most part, were far off. There's certain things like language and alcohol and dancing. We weren't allowed to dance.
No Dirty Dancing?
Definitely no dirty dancing. No even two steps or waltzes. You know.
Mm,
Yeah.
no getting down.
There was definitely no grinding.
Yeah, no. No.
But like we'd go to Bible camp and they'd have a swing dance and we weren't allowed to
Yeah.
participate.
Which makes Halloween nothing. You can't even swing dance.
Yeah.
Like,
Sure.
don't even ask, Dad. Don't even ask
Yeah.
him if we can go to Halloween
Hey,
because
we weren't we
we already know the answer
also
to
like
that one.
French playing cards because like oh they're based in tarot cards. We weren't allowed to play like with French playing cards. So your poker cards. This is a 52 card deck.
Uh huh.
We weren't allowed to play with those.
Wait,
Which
wait,
I mean
wait, why
tarot
do you call them French playing
because that's where
cards?
they're based in. They're called They're, I believe.
I didn't know
Fact check
that.
me.
I
I don't
didn't
know.
know that.
Need a fact checker. Yeah, French playing cards is what you'd call the deck with kings, queens, aces.
Mm.
And it's like, oh, they're based in tarot cards. Well, I believe the first set of French playing cards came out like 50 years before tarot cards came out. So if anything, it's the other way around. But there was a lot of that in my childhood where like you're not allowed to touch or do that thing. Which I mean, okay,
Okay,
so talk about
okay,
Halloween,
okay.
like you're not allowed to do Halloween because it's based in paganism. You're not allowed to do this thing. I mean, yeah, there's some give and take, but I think that at a certain part you really isolate yourself.
So I like this. So I'm on board if the facts line up with the French playing cards. What about instances in the Bible where we're casting lots?
Okay, like just chance to like allow God to determine. I mean, it seems perfectly legitimate. There was law for it. If you're undecided on the matter, like
Flipping a coin?
drawing straws, like specifically what was casting lots in the Bible, I'm not sure, but it'd be in the realm of I think drawing straws. Um, that framework of like put all these things in a hat, and whoever draws the thing, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, they put someone to death that way,
Yeah.
Achan and his whole family. Which is interesting because, like, the law says, oh, you're not supposed to put someone to death for someone else's sins. So, like, it makes you think the family must have been complicit.
Well, you know what? To my benefit, I was very blessed to be raised in a family that clearly there was rule, there was love.
Mm-hmm.
It was dysfunctional love,
Okay.
but there was a bond. The bond I even have with my brothers is amazing. People talk all the time like my three younger brothers, and even my stepbrother, I'll include him. That you still talk to your brothers on a week to week basis.
Mm.
Like, bro, we started a daily quiz where someone is a quiz master every week. Uh, I did Star Trek one week. My other brother did Lord of the Rings.
Mm.
The other one's gonna do, just through different nerdy, topics,
Oh,
and just to keep that interaction going, right? So living in that space, um, obviously created the person I am. I can't imagine not having that foundation, right? To then come out of my teens, my rebellious years, and then to start having a family and to kind of realign and
well, I
say,
think you end up falling back on your backbone if you do
yeah,
rebel, go astray, for lack of a better term.
yeah,
If you do come back
Rumspringa.
around, yeah, yeah, exactly, Rumspringer. You that's a much I think a shorter period, but yeah, you tend to fall back on your.
No, it's undefined.
Is it undefined?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's like it's once and
You
one
go
and
out and
one
then
and
you
done, and
the
once you're
the
back, you're
Amish,
back.
you get to you go
Yeah,
out and live in the world
which
and
is really sad because I've seen some documentaries of these guys getting hooked on some really bad drugs and
mm,
just never making it
and then going
back.
from Amish to cocaine.
Oh, could you imagine?
Mm, well, so what do we where are we going with this podcast? Like if we're building a structure here and figuring out what
Well,
we're doing.
um,
We've already talked about our motivations behind it. Like, what's your motivation?
My motivation is a love for educated discourse and learning, like really just picking other people's brains and just, I know how I grew up, I know how I lived, I know how I live. I want to know more how other people think and how they live, and especially in the Christian world,
Mm.
right? Iron sharpening iron.
Yeah, for sure.
The Holy Spirit's going to convict everybody differently.
Yeah.
Um, and so, that's kind of my purpose is I listen to, I watch a lot of podcasts. I've wanted to be involved in some sort of podcast for a while, and to grow our listenership, to grow
Hmm.
our fan base, to maybe be impactful in some sort of way to society.
I think that's the big thing. Is like, yeah, not even so much the fan base. It's just like conveying knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about shit, but to yeah, if people can take something away that's positive, that's beneficial in their lives, that can make them be a better Christian,
Right.
that's the ultimate goal. I mean, for me, I've always grown the most as a Christian in this kind of setting where we're sitting around a table or campfire, and we have like 4 or 5 Christians just talking,
Yeah.
iron sharpening iron,
About life.
way more than sermons.
Yeah.
Like God loves sermons and all, but that's not where I generally grow as a Christian.
When you take it back to the early church too,
Mm-hmm. Or where
um,
2 or 3 are gathered.
they were just
I mean,
together.
technically, like from a biblical definition, we're having church right now.
Yeah, they were together. They were living life together. They were sharing resources
Mm-hmm.
together. Um, there's definitely a rabbit trail of cults that you can go
Oh,
down
of
with
course.
regards to that, but there is something to be said about being vulnerable, um, enough with another human being outside of your little bubble. I hate bubbles.
Mm.
I love popping bubbles. I am
See, it's easy.
I'm really bad about throwing a conversational grenade
That's funny.
into a group and then literally walking
So
away.
it's easy for me to want to stay in my own bubble,
Okay.
and that's where, like,
Maybe why
again,
this works.
that's part of the podcast is to force me to one be a better speaker
Yeah.
and get outside of my bubble and like think from other people's perspectives more.
Yeah.
And like I mean, I would say I've always been a fairly open mind. Like if you were to ask me like politically where I aligned, I would say I'm a theocratic liberal, meaning like we not God's in charge.
Yeah.
But if the Bible didn't say don't do that or do this, then you don't start creating rules around the Bible that don't exist there.
Right.
So that's where like the liberal aspect comes in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that Christianity is against that aren't in the Bible.
Right.
Um, but
Yeah, and back to the mission that I really feel like we're just trying to connect with people. I would love to one day, get our fan base big enough to where, we actually meet people outside of this bubble,
mm,
that we call Nacogdoches,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
Um,
certainly the idea would be to grow, like if it grows, God willing, to grow beyond, yeah, just where we are. We're not going to limit it.
no, no, no. That I definitely don't, because we have we're connected with a higher vantage point, right? We can definitely see the bigger picture with regards to, you know, what God's plan is
Mm,
for the church, for Christians. Um, yeah, and listen, it could all burn down in a week,
no.
and I would be just fine with that, and it would be just all right. Let's pick up. Let's start building community. I got 2 banana trees,
Mm,
and this time next year should have some bananas,
cool.
and then I'm gonna start a
Yeah.
banana farm.
I mean, one thing for me is like I think it's important to focus on the small picture, like a hierarchy of what we want out of this thing. It's
Yeah.
one, just getting to know people better in our community. Like the podcast is a great way to get to know people because I will certainly ask you questions. I'm never going to ask you on a Sunday morning after church what your earrings mean.
Right. No,
I'm not going
that's
to do
that's
that.
me. I'm the one who asked those weird
Yeah.
questions.
Whereas here, I will ask those
Yeah, yeah.
questions. Like I do think like when people come in with tattoos, I'm like, what do those tattoos mean?
Right.
Why? Because like you marked your body permanently.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty hard getting those things off.
I got an unfinished one you have to see after the
Oh
pod.
yeah,
Yep.
as long as it's in a modest
It
place.
is in a modest place.
Okay. But to like to focus on like having these kind of conversations, getting to know people better,
Yeah.
learning how to communicate better with others.
Yeah.
Because when you again, when you stay isolated, sheltered in your own bubble, you don't work the muscle of communication
Yeah.
and articulating and communicating your ideas. Like I tend to be a better writer than I am a speaker because I have time to think through my ideas.
Mm.
And I can spend an hour on that sentence, whereas here I have it's live. Like I have this amount of time to
We're
spend on the
live.
sentence, which is
Yeah.
why I don't want to do editing here.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think just keep
so
keep the tape rolling and
yeah,
fade to black.
unedited. So yeah, I mean, the plan is to have these kind of conversations. Like I
Yeah.
would like to do twice a week if we can. I mean, okay, I say I would like to. I know, like during in between times, I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Get outside my bubble. But once I get here, I'm fine. Um, and then my goal is to get to 100. And when I say that, I'm like committing to it. I'm like, oh, now I'm obligated to get to 100. But that's part of it. It's like working out. It's like going to the gym, having this conversation.
Yeah. I think for me,
And you
um,
don't know where this thing can get to without doing 100. You're not going to get good at it until you get to that point.
right, right. Yeah, we could scrap Christians talking about shit after 100 episodes and that's the finale and then start another project.
Yeah. I don't feel like that'll happen, but
No, I
who
don't think
knows?
so
Like
too. This would be the backbone.
that's the aim. That's the point I'm aiming
Are
at.
you open to offshoots?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
I think
I
I
mean, we
think
already
that
have an
would
idea for an offshoot. Yeah.
okay. I'm excited about that because, like I said, I really truly feel just want to be in this space, right? Involved in this space.
Mm.
For whatever reason,
Well, I'm glad you're here. Like I do feel like you're a answer to prayer that I did not pray.
Okay,
Because
I'll take it.
when I first started this thing, like I think we did the first 6 without you, and I went through a stage of like kind of asking several people, like, "Hey, would you like to be involved with this?" Garth and Terrell in particular, and they're both like, "Well, I can't really commit. I'll come on as a guest, but I
Yeah,
can't commit to that thing." Terrell, particularly, like he's a pastor. He's like, "I can't be a co-host on a
right.
podcast that's called Christians Talking About Shit. I'll have to have a few weird conversations,"
Yeah,
which I get it. And I think what I was trying to do was probably like my insecurities were trying to look for a security blanket in another person to be there with me.
yeah,
And I had to come to the point where it's like, no, God's like, I gave you this podcast. You're supposed to be the host. You're supposed to do this thing to make you better. And you don't need that security blanket. And so I came to that point like, all right, it's just me and the other person in the room. And when we'll get to the round tables, we'll get to the round tables. And then you come along and you're like, I mean, because Terrell told me like, yeah, you should talk to Ben. Ben loves podcasts. He's big into podcasts. So I came and talked to you, and it's like, yeah, you love podcasts. Like that's how I would describe it. And so it was like I said, all right, fine. It's the kind of the analogy when someone's looking for a wife. They're like, God, give me a wife. And then finally, when they give up on finding a wife, God puts a wife in their
uh,
lap and gives it to them. It's kind of like that.
well,
Where like I gave up on looking for that security blanket. I'm going to do this on my own. And then Ben's like, hey, I want to do this thing with you. And you're committed to being here.
we talked a little bit off camera about meetings and names. What did you say Amos meant again?
I believe burden bearer.
Burden bearer.
I have to go back and look on that, but I
Um,
believe that's what I was always told is burden bearer. I
and
think there
and
might be some
and
deviation, but
Benjamin, son of my right hand.
mhm,
And it wasn't until probably I don't know, a handful of years ago, my dad drilled that into me for whatever reason. Son of
mm,
my right hand, son of my right hand. But it in his context, it was like more of a divine, hey, son of my right hand from God, you are the son of, you know, which I'm sure had some sort of effect on my personality,
mhm,
my being, right? And as I started progressing in just I was a welder for a little while and got out of that after 10 years and started doing some insurance adjusting a little bit. Um, I've started noticing God putting me in places, not in leadership, but like right beside it.
mm, interesting.
And then it connected several years ago, and it had to have been God
Hmm.
saying, "Yeah, that's what your name means, son of my right hand." Like, you're always going to be the right hand man. You're going to be facilitating with the same goal in mind, you
Hmm.
know, moving that whatever goal that may be. You're going to be, you may not be the leader, but you're going to be helping that along. So I
It's
really,
interesting.
I really like how you're carrying this burden.
Hmm. Well,
Um,
I mean, I've always liked to be behind the camera, so it's different for me. Like
yeah,
I'm used to being like writer director type position where the goal is like seen but not heard. Or no, I think heard but not seen. Well, maybe that doesn't work either. But being behind the camera,
but
like
that's,
you're creating what's in front of the camera.
uh-huh.
Like this would be easier for me if I was over there and just directing everybody.
Yeah.
But then, like I'm here, it's fine once I'm in it. It's fine once I'm in it, and
Yeah.
I know that. Um, but yeah, I think it's kind of thing that like I need to grow as a person, become a better speaker, become a better communicator. Like you can't be a good director if you can't communicate well.
Hey, I'll be your Aaron to your Moses, man.
I was thinking Joab to David, but yeah.
Oh, oh.
Joab might not be someone. That's one of my favorite characters in the
Moses
Bible.
couldn't speak either,
Do you know
right?
much about Joab?
Joab to David?
Joab was he's a interesting biblical character, man.
No, but there's another Ben that was connected with David that I was doing some research
Mm.
about. What is his
As your Joab, you might have to murder a few people.
yeah.
Anyway, it's an analogy.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
I think
Like
it
and subscribe.
like yeah, where can we be found?
Anywhere podcasts can be found. You can find us. We do want to start driving up some subscribers, some likes, get us in the
Yeah,
algorithm.
heavy presence on YouTube.
Yeah.
Trying to put up shorts and
Let's get this
regular
thing
posts
going.
there. But yeah,
Let's get it going.
we might even dabble with TikTok.
Ooh. TikTok.
Maybe, maybe not. Twitter, Instagram. Ooh. I don't know. It's really more about driving traffic to the long form.
Yeah.
But
We also might need to come up with an ending. That's
ah,
all, folks.
I don't think we need a full. I don't know.
No. No.
I'm not a fan of the gimmicky stuff. I like uh, in and out. Like we're sitting down for coffee and now we're leaving or a
Well,
drink or whatever.
yeah.
That's been a good one.
Yep.
Yeah. Looking forward to many more.
That's gonna be good, man.
All right. Well, thank you, Ben.
See you.